Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
High fly ball to left. J.D. Martinez has hit it out again. 2 home runs tonight for Martinez. Solo blast in the second. 3-run shot here in the third.
First pitch to Velasquez, and he lifts it deep to left field. Quad barely moves. Forget about it. Long gone. Home run. Nelson Velasquez. The Royals now trail 4-2.
First and goal at the 2. Under center is Carr. Carr hands off to Tony Jones Jr. And Jones Jr. takes it down. Waiting for the signal.
The man feet are in the end zone.
Touchdown, Tony Jones.
Pickett goes shotgun from his 29. Slot to his wide side left. Gets the snap. Fakes the handoff. Throws that pass over the middle on a dead run. George Pickett. He's at the 40. 35. A man falls down. 25, 20, 15, 10. Pickett. Touchdown. 71 yards for George Pickens from Kenny Pickett.
I think the biggest thing at quarterback is we're always going to play the guys we think that give us the best chance to win. That doesn't mean everybody doesn't give us a good chance to win. We don't want guys feeling like you have a quick trigger on them, like you're pulling them too quickly, right? So, because they need to settle down and play.
Here we go on a Tuesday on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla, presented right here for you at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, H&H Chevrolet Studio. We are on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, Twitter, YouTube, streaming live, and of course you can catch us wherever you watch your podcasts. We appreciate you joining us this morning. DB,
Ravi,
how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good.
I'd be a lot better if I could find the iPad. But
yeah, we've got a little TV situation here where they're basically just playing. It's essentially a channel of TikToks.
So
is what it looks like.
Is this like having like the remote at home and you just can't ever find it? Because that thing seems to have a mind of its own.
So I'm very diligent about where
that's 100%.
Because I hate not being able to find the remote. But also I have my TVs set up in a way that I can control all of them from my phone if I have to.
Oh, that's cute.
So that way I never run into a situation where it's like, the wife took the remote off somewhere, forgot to put it back.
I've left with the remote in my pocket.
I have too.
Yeah.
I'd usually, if I'm wearing like a hoodie or something, I put it in my little hoodie pocket and just walk around the house.
Must be a caveman thing because I do that too.
Are we cavemen? Is that what we decided here?
I mean, it's kind of archaic that we would have to do that, don't you think? Are you waiting for that? Like, is it Cro-Magnon where you kind of get that brow?
Yeah, you've got the like oversized furrowed brow.
I feel kind of like that a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I just do it. I just don't want to lose the remote.
It's all good.
And usually I forget is more than anything. Like I put it in my pocket so I know where it is, and I walk off with it, forget where it is.
Yeah. So, is it safe to say that your liquid to ice ratio is pretty good? Because it's giving me the heebie-jeebies again.
No. So
why didn't you just put more ice in there?
Well, because I don't fill it up.
Oh, you told me that.
I'm
before.
a drive-through
and so it's
guy.
the same. Yeah, it's the same place. I like your breakfast sandwich. Looks cute.
It's good.
Is it?
Yeah, it's really good.
Looks legit. Did you finally have some good taste and stop going with the syrupy bread and go with the Asiago or cheese?
No, I've got the cinnamon, the sweet.
Yeah.
again.
See, okay.
I like the contrast.
It's your food, so you do you. But since you asked me, that's pretty lousy. I mean, I know you care what I care. It's like,
yeah, well, I just do this so you don't.
You're like, hey, DB,
breakfast.
What do you think about what I'm doing over here? How would you like to mind my business? No, I know that's what you're thinking.
I mean, it's kind of what we do. We're sort of just out here minding everybody's business. That's kind of the job.
It is. It's okay. It's
I mean, if you don't come with strong opinions, it's not going to be very much fun.
Yeah. Yeah. You didn't try to call me yesterday, did you?
No.
Okay.
Why? What's up?
No, I just.
You off the radar a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was off the grid for a sec.
That's all right.
It's, a lot of jotting come latelys.
Yeah, no, my day was a little busy yesterday.
Was it?
Well,
fielding a lot of calls about your guy too.
Rizek?
Yeah.
You better be fielding a lot of calls about my guy.
So I was stretching him yesterday, and I just kind of wanted to take a picture of him, but
Yeah.
I didn't because it'd be kind of creepy.
Yeah, I mean, when you said it, I was like, that's a little weird.
But so like I'm stretching him, and his size, like people have no idea. You have to just come stand next to him.
He's a big kid.
He's going to fill out. And I thought, what made me think of it?
What's that?
Was how during the game, we've talked about this before, like Harburg has exceptional size.
Mm-hmm. Really big dude.
Sims has
really big
really
dude.
like good size. And I'm not saying plug and play, but I'm saying if you're looking at a guy that is going to grow and grow a lot, he's definitely that dude. He's 6'3 3/4.
Yeah. Well, somebody hit us up on Twitter the other day and is like, what's holding him back? Is his height? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's like 6'3.
He's almost 6'4.
Yeah, like it's not the height. I don't know what has held him back in terms of getting the offers. I think.
No, I mean, and it's like I said, I get it. Our offensive coordinator. I never pass up the chance to get a passive aggressive shot in, and he said, "Hey, I just don't know what we can do differently. Like, let's just keep playing." And I said, "I know what you can do. Throw the ball." Throw the ball.
Yeah, I mean, so,
we
I don't know what the final totals were, but at halftime, I'm looking at the stat sheet against Miller North, and it's 4 of 5 passing.
Dude, I'm like, throw the ball, man.
But it is 4 of 5 passing with 160 yards and 2 touchdowns, so that part's good.
Yeah.
Or it might have been 150. I think it was like 156 yards and 2 touchdowns on 4 or 5 passing.
Like we're the only school going that like our good players are always decoys because we have other good players. I'm like,
Well, there was a stretch in the first half where like Caleb wasn't even playing that much offense.
I hate that.
I pointed it out to Avery. I was like, usually Caleb's out there pretty much every play. What's happening?
It pisses me off all the time, but I have to practice what I preach. But I mean, since it's just me, you, and our listeners.
Yeah, it's just me and you. I forget we're talking to people half the time.
It drives me up the wall. But I mean, some of that's on him too, right? Like, I need a blow, which I think is totally made up.
Whatever. Listen,
it's totally made up.
He had no conditioning and played both ways all in the state championship game. Like, you're fine, Caleb.
Yeah.
Just go out there and play offense for me, okay?
I was just watching I sent you the play participation sheet. Is that yesterday?
I think so.
And you realize they played 29 guys on defense?
I knew it was a lot. I didn't know the number.
Doesn't that seem like a big number?
It's a huge number.
How are you not fresh?
I would have guessed I would guess normal teams, and this is just a ballpark. I would guess normal teams were at like 18.
So I need to ask either my man RDK or Stu Manji. He's got to be by Tony. That defense has to be averaging. What would you guess? 24 guys?
Yeah, because you had a few extra against Northern Illinois because they got out of hand, right? But
so probably averaging 24?
22, 24, somewhere in there.
Well, there's a big difference, so you can't do that. That's like when somebody says, "Well, I'll be there in an hour or two." That's
okay. I'd probably go high. I'd probably go 24.
Okay.
Because they've been shuffling in 7 guys on the line.
Yeah.
6, 7 somewhere, right?
How about the D line? Did you even notice Blaze Gunnarsson?
No.
Me neither.
I told you this yesterday. So I love Cam Lenhart. He was on one of my guys at the beginning of the season, and he obviously had the big week last week with the sacks. I didn't realize he hadn't hardly played until the end of the game.
That's how I felt about Reimer.
Yeah.
And I told you Jess had to tell me that he went to the tent.
Yeah.
I was like, wait. I mean, because all those guys are like single digits, like 3, 4,
right.
5.
And he still played the most snaps of any of the linebackers.
I know.
There was not a single. I said this yesterday. There's not a single guy who played more than half the defensive snaps in the linebacking crew, and he was the most at 29. Everybody else was in the it was like 24 and under. and they played like 12 linebackers.
Everybody.
I know, Trev. Everybody.
He was playing everybody.
Do you know how Trev's Trev's a boss?
How's that?
We're doing like a 15-minute hit.
Mhm.
Jessica and I before the game. And she's what I call, she is
We needed to do something.
yes. She is let's just say organized.
Okay.
So at about she told me earlier in the week, but at about 3:00, she gives me the 2-hour warning. Okay. She's like, hey, this is what we're gonna do. This is what time we're gonna do it. Like, all right, so I'm operating in the loop.
Okay.
So I get down there. She's like, hey, I'm in such and such a corner. We have to do this hit, and then we're gonna do a 15-minute deal. Now, when she told me earlier, you can reach a point of diminishing returns with me.
Mhm.
Like if you tell me too early,
You kind of have to thread the needle of like early enough, but not too early.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Monday is too early.
Yeah.
Tuesday's probably too early. Because if you're going to have me there anyway,
You don't have to
no.
remind you to make sure you're there.
So
right?
I didn't really put 2 and 2 together, like the 15 minutes. Like she wanted to carry a pregame.
Mhm.
And so I get down there and I'm like, are you messing with me? Like, we have to be down here because it was crowded. I'm like, are you serious? Like, we have to do this for 15 minutes. And she looked at me and she's like, I told you 15 minutes. So then I had to get it in. I was like, okay, shoot, let me snap out of it. But that corner, so T. Fraze was down there. Coach Osborne was down there. Crouch was down there.
Yep.
Larry the Cable Guy was down there.
Yep.
About 65 other important people. And she doesn't blink, right? I mean, it is, I'm like that dog on Up, right? I'm like, squirrel.
Yeah.
Like, and people are talking, like, they're like walking by just shaking hands. We're doing a hit. She doesn't bat an eye, just keeps on with the questions. We're doing the breakdown. And Trev just walks right in front of us. Says, keep up the good work, and keeps on moving. She kept right on talking, and my dumb butt, oh, hey, Trev. I'm like, she's a professional. I am not. And our guy, our technician, does a lot of the film setup and stuff. He's like, hey, how do you like doing those pre-games down there? And it seemed like there was a lot going on. And I was like, oh, there's definitely a lot going on, but I think we can kind of hang in there because it's getting. I think it gets a lot of views because I don't know anything about Facebook really.
Okay.
And we got this YouTube, and all of that is like Portuguese to me. I probably should have a little better command of that, but just tell me where to be and what am I doing. But that corner, we may have to pick a new spot, man. That's like the hangout spot.
That's where all the important people are.
Dude, it's unbelievable. Crouch, he is so. You talk about two guys that are like legendary, that are comfortable in their own skin. That's the T. Fraze.
Yeah.
Like they just held court.
Yeah.
And it's like, no big deal.
I feel like, and I don't know Tommy. I really don't know either of them, but
he like gave me his wallet.
What do you mean?
I was like, hey man, I said, I'm hungry. Can you? He said, go grab me something to eat, man. I said, I don't eat on game days.
Yeah.
I'm just messing with him. He just like took his wallet out of his pocket and gave it to him. We're doing a hit. He's like, no. He's like, go ahead. And I was like, dude, this is all plastic. He's like, no, there's cash in there.
No one cares. Nobody cares.
So I'm just like, but he's just comfortable. He's just all the way comfortable.
If I had to guess, and you can obviously tell me, he seems like a guy that's kind of always been that way.
Dude, he's hilarious.
Like that seems like
he's very secure.
Right.
Right. Like he's
and that's kind of seems why maybe that means that you don't hear him going off a lot. You don't hear him talking a lot.
And he never calls me by my real name. So I think sometimes people wonder who he's talking to, but he calls me Greg because my middle name is Gregory.
So he just calls you Greg.
Yeah. So I know sometimes people.
Should I start calling you DGB?
No. Clinton used to tell me it stands for "Don't Go Bald" because I have a funny shaped head. So, those guys would all cut their hair. They could cut their hair off.
Yeah.
I think, shoot, Clinton is still bald except for his beard. And I was like, LP would cut his hair off. And I'm like,
Clinton is rocking that Lovie Smith beard.
Yeah. He's a monster. And I'm like, shoot, man. I said, I want to be part of the crew. And he looked at me. He was like, no.
Don't go bald.
No. No. So it just was like, and I think just building on the momentum, because remember way back when, it seems like eons ago, but I said, gosh, if Nebraska ever started 2-0, like the Love Fest would be at an all-time high. Not to steal the song from James Bond, Shane.
Rita Coolidge.
All-time high?
Yep.
Sure.
That's who sang it.
Oh. I'm not familiar with Rita. I mean, I've heard of her.
Neither am I. I'm just a Bond fan. That's all.
I think All Time Low is like an emo song or band.
Who?
Emo. All Time Low, I think.
Emo?
Emo.
I know what it means culturally, but that's the name of the band?
No, it's a type of music.
Emo.
Emo.
Same as emo people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Emo people came from emo music.
Makes sense.
It was like a culture. It started as kind of a music deal, and that kind of culturally
makes sense.
Spread out.
Yeah. So I'm just like, gosh, the momentum it's just waiting to be tapped, right? And then yesterday's presser happened. It's like, woosah. I start rubbing my own ears. And I asked those guys, remember I told you I was just chopping it up with Coach Barthel? And it was a ridiculous conversation. It just started because he looks extremely fit now.
Sure.
And I know it's competitive amongst that staff and stuff. And I'm like, looking good. And then I'm asking, I'm not trying to be newsy at this point. We're just peers, right? We're just because we like to talk running backs. And I said, oh, so how's such and such and such and such? Oh, I think we're going to be okay. Waiting to get some feedback with the docs now. So I kind of thought we were going to be, I don't know if all good is the term I'm looking for, but I certainly didn't think season ending.
I would say season enders was shocking a little bit for both of them.
So when rumors started to swirl yesterday or Sunday night, I was like, I'll wait for the presser.
Yeah.
And then the presser happened.
And
so I feel good but bad in saying, because I said all along we'll need them all.
Yeah.
In terms of the running backs.
Yeah.
But I didn't think we'd need them all this way.
Yeah, not like this, right? You thought maybe some guys would have different skill sets and different strengths and weaknesses, whatever.
Or just the sheer workload, the volume.
Right. And splitting that. I mean, that's not all.
Because I don't know if you know this, according to the NFL, running backs fake injuries.
All the time.
Dude, what is the NFLPA and
so soft?
The owners
I don't
doing?
know what they're doing.
And they have nerve enough to talk about collusion. The owner, that takes a lot of gall, doesn't it?
Well, usually when people make outlandish claims against other people, it's like they're projecting.
We call that projection. Very good. I talk about that a lot. I used to say that 10, 12 years ago.
It's like the people that are over the top with the way they talk and the confidence and stuff like that. It's like, oh, that person's probably deeply insecure.
False bravado.
Yeah, I'm not looking at you, Dion.
Hey, his 60 minutes piece.
I haven't seen all of it. I've seen parts of it.
Wowzer.
I am really struggling with Dion lately. I'm just going to be honest with you.
So my buddy told me a story. I'm going to keep him out of it.
Okay.
And I'm going to keep the sponsor out of it.
Okay.
But this is 100% a true story. So everybody's there on Saturday, right? I mean, it's this huge national matchup, Colorado State, right?
Yeah.
Huge, right? It's tongue firmly buried in cheek. And so he calls on Friday and he's like, man, DB, I got a story for you. This is my dude, right? He's not, this hyperbole isn't his thing.
Okay.
Especially in his profession. And it's like, man, what's up? And he's like, so, such and such is a title sponsor for CU. And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, they have this big event. It's a corporate event. A couple of my buddies, weird. He's with some high-end people. at this particular institution have a contract with the said school, because there's a couple of schools that they give money to, a substantial amount of money to, 7 figures.
Yeah.
Okay. And so part of their set agreement is a 1 hour meet and greet.
Okay.
With the head coach at that university at the time. Doesn't matter who it is.
Right. Yeah.
Head coach. So
just happens to be
happens to be Coach Sanders.
Yeah.
So Coach Sanders tells the institution, no, I'm not doing that unless they pay me X amount of money. This is in addition to
what they're giving the school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the sponsors are like, what?
Obviously don't love that.
Like, come on, we've been doing this for years, yada, yada, yada. Yeah. Athletic director. Yeah, there's not much I can do about that.
I mean, that's what happens though, right?
I'm like, wait, what? And this is on the heels of him saying Sunday, actually, he recorded this before, but on 60 Minutes, yeah, my kids aren't committing to the university. They're committing to me.
They are.
I'm just like,
that's 100% accurate.
That has to make you uncomfortable as an institution, unless you're just content on riding the temporary wave.
Well, that's the thing, is if you hire Dion in the first place, you have to understand this is what you're getting.
You're going to build from the outside in.
Yeah, I mean, and you're not really building. Like you said, you're riding a temporary wave. Because, listen, I've had people on Twitter, and I know they're Colorado fans, so they're looking at it through rose-colored glasses and stuff, right? But they're telling me, oh, I really think he's going to stick it out in Boulder. I was like, okay.
Oh, I saw your little clapback with money being good in the SEC.
Yeah, and listen, I understand he was able.
Which, by the way, you're right. Don't follow you during games. You're crazy. I mean, you're going to get some. So you don't mind having to interact during games, because because that's what's going to happen.
Well, and I feel like it's somewhat what people expect of me because of what we do, right? You're obviously working during games, and I sort of am, but that's sort of my work, right?
Before I used to do the games, I would do something similar, but when it got like nut cutting time in like the second half, I would like slow it down.
Yeah,
because I can't function like that.
Right,
and plus I'm 32 plays behind.
I was gonna say you're in the second quarter still because you had to rewind and rewatch. Yeah. I'm usually just here at the bar, just like tweeting away while I'm getting ready for
something I probably admire but would never do.
I mean, it's not really. I mean, I'll watch games in public. I don't. If I wasn't doing post game live from the studio right after the game,
you're like, hey, do you want to watch Texas and Bama out? I'm like, no. Actually,
that's
don't.
The funny thing, though. It's not just Nebraska. You don't want to watch any games out.
So mostly, unless okay, so you're right. Like 90% of the time is probably a hard no.
I think the only time I've ever watched a game with you out was the first half of Creighton Princeton.
Yeah, and it has to. Yeah. So that's kind of fun.
March Madness
no real skin in the game. Yeah. March Madness is a little different.
Oh, I don't know about that. Greg's your guy, man.
But even like half hour, yeah, he is my guy.
You got a little skin in that game.
You know what? I haven't talked to him in a second. I think I need a love touch.
Greg, remind me.
I think I was. I still don't call him by his first name. I still say Coach. Yes,
yeah, that's a thing though.
Coach Mac, I need a love touch.
We'll set up the show coming up next year on Benning and Lulla.
We will be back in 5 minutes. We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes. We will be back in 2 minutes. We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
You know, I'll never say to anybody, stay here. You know, my whole thing is I'm not going to beg anyone to stay. But I do want to give them a vision of what I see, okay? And I think that's really important. So, like, when Jamari went in the portal, I called him, like, what are you – get in here. What are you doing? You know, like, yeah, we think you're a good player. You know, so, just such a hard time, right? I remember, like it was yesterday, like, you know, what we did was we made cut-ups of all the players playing in games, but also we made practice cut-ups of everybody, right? So we watched everybody. And we studied them. And so we were like, man, this guy's got a great release. He's athletic. And everyone's like, yeah, he'll be a great tight end. He'll be a great fullback. He'll be a great this, right? So I remember it like literally, like, at the time, the offensive staff room, quarterback meeting room was part of my office. Sad has since stolen it, but he walked by. I said, "Hey, let me talk to you for a second." I said, everybody says you should go play tight end, you should go play fullback. I could kind of see the look of disgust on his face, and I said, "But I think you should play quarterback. I think you should try to play quarterback and see what happens. And if at some point I don't think you can play quarterback, I'm going to tell you, you know what, you should play something else, and then you can make a decision if you want to leave or stay here." I said, "But you should take your shot at this thing." And then I brought Sad in, and Sad said, "I said, Sad, what do you think about this guy?" And he said the same thing to him. And I just think from that day on, Heinrich's been like, okay. And there was times in camp in the spring where he was maybe third or fourth, but he's gotten better and better and better. And again, that's our job. Our job's not to write guys off; it's to get them better. So, but the credit to me goes to him and his family.
We're here with you on a Tuesday on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. I want to set up the show for you because I didn't do that before, and I should do that to start the show. Listen, we're all learning here. It's fine.
The difficulties of being a one.
It's still a little new for me. We're still working on it.
That's a lie.
Actually, I haven't done that much as a one with a co-host. I posted solo a ton.
Yeah.
And I posted as a two a ton.
Like Meatloaf.
So we did like a little Meatloaf deep dive in the commercial break. I don't know why. Because I mentioned the name of a Celine Dion
It's all
song.
coming back to me, you said.
Yeah, so he's not actually singing on the Celine version, but there was a controversy with him and Celine both recording that song because Jim Steinman wrote it and I think sold it to both of them or whatever.
Shane.
He kind of double dipped a little bit.
Who's the Jim guy that he's talking about?
He's like a music producer, and he like is a songwriter for some, like he does the background stuff for some people.
Yeah.
All
right.
So there was like a court case, I guess, between Meatloaf and Celine Dion over that song.
Yeah, I didn't remember them doing the same song together, but
So they weren't on the song together, but they were connected.
now Paradise by the Dashboard Light he did with somebody, and I'm just looking that up right now.
Speak English, please.
Ellen Foley is the woman that he used to sing
I'm
with.
done. You guys keep
I don't know who
saying
that
these
is.
random people's
You
names.
asked what woman he used to sing with. It's
Okay,
Ellen
but I
Foley.
mean, this is a super deep cut, and I'm like, I just has a topical one. I just want a band.
I think people.
I don't need you to get in there.
I think people come to the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla
Right,
for
to hear
deep cuts
about
on Meatloaf.
to hear about random musicians.
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
By the way, funny story. When I was driving over here, and Sasha hadn't texted yet, and I was like, "Man, where's Lil Durk?" And then, of course, I thought about how Sauter hates all the Lils, and I was like, "I wonder if anybody's ever called Sasha Lil Durk." That's
not a terrible nickname. That's not bad.
Lil Durk.
Yeah.
It's not original because there's definitely somebody that is that. But
Sure.
That's where my mind goes at 6:10 in the morning.
I think that sounds about right.
Lil Durk. So I just call her Lil.
On the show today,
Lil apostrophe.
We're just going to keep going. On the show today, we've got Steve.
Well, I'm a
Jones.
little concerned
About Meatloaf?
No.
About Ellen Foley?
about
Jim
our health situation.
About Jim Steinman?
No. And who are all those other random people?
Those are actually the guys that are going to play running back in Nebraska this year.
My name is Jeff. Somebody asked me if I had any eligibility left, and I was like, why? So I could add to the MASH unit? You know I'm only good for one game.
DB was going to give you 6
that's
good
it.
carries.
That's it.
But on number 6, he's going to need wheeled off.
What did Bernie Mac say? That's a heavyweight fight. I'm good for 1 round, 3 minutes. It's a lot of people that have been knocked out in 3 minutes.
Oh, yeah. We've got Steve Jones. He does play-by-play for Penn State.
They've got a big one.
There's a bunch of big ones this weekend. It's going to be an awesome slate of college football this week.
Will you be in front of the television?
Oh, yeah.
I will not.
I'll be can't. Well, you got stuff to do. You're working hard.
Man, our TVs are so high in the studio. I can't see.
Yeah.
But another cool thing about Sharpie is he likes multiple games on.
Yeah.
So I don't have to worry about asking.
That's always nice.
Oh, yeah. He's going to figure it out. So, and he's so good. Like, he'll call people in to change the channel if he can't figure out what's going on. I don't have the stones, but you've done this for as long as he has. Get such and such in here to get this TV fixed. I was like, man, I kind of like the swag.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to figure out what to do because that 2:30 window on Saturday is jam-packed.
Yeah, watch yourself now.
What?
Careful with what you're going to say next.
What?
Jam-packed with what? There's only one game at 2:30 that has significance to you.
What do you mean? I mean, I know Nebraska plays at 2:30.
Yeah, okay.
But that's what I mean.
So anything else is extra.
It is extra, but there's 3 national games that are ranked versus ranked all at 3:30 or at 2:30 in addition to that.
And
I like watching college football, man.
You better get your library game right.
Don't worry. I record every college football game on my YouTube TV.
And by the way, we'll have that swag on Thursday at 8. Greg will be on at 8.
Oh, is he?
Yep.
Nice get.
There we go.
Nice get.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I understand Nebraska plays at 2:30, but there's 3 really big games at 2:30 in addition to Nebraska.
All right, we'll put them in order for me.
Well, I think
order of operations. Bless, please, my dear Aunt Sally.
Bama, Ole Miss.
No.
No.
Are
you talking including Nebraska?
Well, that's one at the 2:30 time slot.
I mean, you've got Alabama, Ole Miss, Utah, UCLA, and Oregon, Colorado.
Man,
what
the world is wrong with you?
What are you talking about?
Oregon's a 20-point fave. Bama doesn't know who's going to play quarterback. Ole Miss is just okay. And what do you care about UCLA and Utah?
I love Utah. You know, I have like a huge Kyle Whittingham man.
No, I'm with you.
I'm with you. I like them. I like the way they play. Also, I low-key picked them to make the college football playoff. So
you realize this isn't the year for 12, right?
Yes, I understand that.
Says the guy that said Texas Tech was my dark horse.
I think they can run the table. And if they do that in a Pac-12 with all the quality teams in the Pac-12 this year, they will make the playoff. I think they can get in with a loss still.
Who?
Utah.
Wash your mouth out, young man.
There's so many good teams in the Pac-12.
Yeah, it's a deep.
Their strength of schedule is going to be good enough. They can drop a game.
Yeah, Oregon State, Washington State is sneaky good too.
Yeah, it's not at 2:30 though.
I'm just saying. So you ever felt like you got your wrist slapped, but you really didn't get touched? I'm just saying. Isn't that what we do? We talk to one another.
Yeah, you're giving me a lot of attitude about wanting to watch games.
Oh, okay, Dad. You giving me attitude?
I'm over
Who says that? It's 2023.
I'm just saying. I'm over here being like, hey, there's a lot of big games at 2:30, and you're like, there's only one game for you.
Shay,
son.
did your mom say that to you? You giving me attitude? Exactly. Who says that?
I'm just saying.
You giving me attitude?
Am I wrong? You're giving me a little toot over here.
Oh Lord.
Is it okay for me to talk about how there's big games at like the 6:30 window too, or is that?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll just be finishing up.
Is that off limits?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay. I mean, I don't think the games are as good at 6:30.
The world is your oyster, my man.
Not a big oyster guy.
Me neither, but I do like Scarface.
I'm more of a.
Although the older I've gotten,
Scarface isn't a good movie.
It's a little overrated.
It's not a good movie.
At least
let's not go crazy.
It's not a good movie.
Stop.
I just watched it the other day, but at least I can say this: since you started 8, there won't be any games at 8, so you won't miss anything. Like
hey, another great Twitter handle: Purple Jesus Diaries. It is 7:30 in the morning, isn't it? I don't know. Is it? I think so.
7:38.
What'd we do?
I don't know. We're
random.
Getting squirrely on us.
So what's that 6:30 that has your interest?
I mean, Ohio State, Notre Dame.
That's a good one.
That's a big one.
That's a good one.
Iowa, Penn State. We're going to talk to Steve Jones here in a little bit. About
Jonesy's a good man.
And then you've got, I don't know how interesting some of these other ones, like North Carolina Pitt goes off at 7. I don't think Pitt's very good. It's basically just those two. Texas Baylor's off to a tough start, so that's maybe interesting, but it's those two big ones in the night window, which is why I thought the 2:30 window was better. But apparently, Damon Benning tells me I'm wrong. So
no, I mean, free to be me. Like you're okay.
No, I just want to try and watch some games. That's all.
Man,
I tried to set up the show. We didn't quite get there. Mike Schaefer joining us at 9, and Teddy Allen of Louisiana Tech radio analyst will join us at 9:45. So we got you covered football-wise here on a Tuesday. We will wrap up hour number 1 on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla coming up next.
We'll be right back in 4 minutes. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We'll be right back in 1 minute. We'll be right back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
As much as like I'd love to be stoic and be like that. The results shouldn't matter. Obviously, they want to win. They were happy that they won. I was happy we won. You know what I mean? Of course they're happy, right? I just appreciate the fact that a lot of them have belief before they won, right? Buford and I are walking on the field before the game, and I'm just talking to him, right? Like I'm getting him ready for when it's his time. Like it just, and he's like, Coach, I 100% believe in the process. I understand what we have to do. And so I just, it's good for them to get that. It's good for them to get that win. And it's also good for them to not forget the first two games and what they learned, because championship teams come out of teams that learn hard lessons. And so you have to learn, hey, this is what it feels like to lose. This is what it feels like to win. The margin is like this for us. So we've got to just keep erring and making the margin a little bit bigger each week by getting better.
We're wrapping up hour number 1 here on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. DB's a little out of pocket this morning. I'm not. With you.
My man Bernie Embody nailed the sponsor.
He is. You're a little all over the place today.
No, not at all.
Loose cannon.
I don't know. I don't know why you have an aversion to doing interviews in giraffe costumes.
No. Listen, I said you wouldn't do an interview.
I would do an interview in a giraffe costume.
I don't believe that.
I would too.
I don't. In a million years, I don't believe that.
Dude, I would do an interview now if I was hurt and I was going to miss a couple of games.
I'm saying any interview. I'm not saying in Travis Hunter's situation.
I would do an interview in a giraffe costume.
Like in a giraffe onesie, basically, is what he was wearing.
Yeah.
That's what that was. That's like an adult onesie.
So a couple years ago, I did I use this term loosely, celebrity boxing match, and I fought in a Mr. Incredible's costume.
Okay.
And it was a onesie.
Okay.
I'm not a big onesie guy, obviously, as a 40-some-odd-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's a...
But was that weird that Travis Hunter
gave
an update on his last rated liver in a giraffe costume?
I thought the whole thing was weird.
I still can't believe your guy's getting death threats over that, though.
How's he my guy?
We plays for Colorado State. I figured anybody that is playing against Colorado.
It's going to be one of those.
Because you're so mad at Deion.
I'm not mad at Deion. I just don't like it. I don't like any of it.
Well, we're not going to agree on this.
No, we're not.
Shocker, but
it's because you have a unnatural.
That's not true.
Affinity for
That's
Deion.
not true.
You do though.
That's not true.
You told me about this already.
No, I'm a Deion guy, but I can be objective. I told you 2 weeks ago I hated his presser. It made me cringe. Like, I don't lack objectivity.
Okay,
but he doesn't need to be a clout chaser.
No,
though.
But
he has all the clout.
That's what bothers me.
No,
He's one of the few people that actually has real clout, and he acts like a clout chaser anyway.
No.
Yes.
No.
That he acts like an Instagram influencer. That's how he lives his life. That's crazy to me. He doesn't have to. He has a real life.
Oh, Lord. He does, outside of his kids. He already told you he didn't want to go to the NFL.
Yeah, and I certainly believe that.
He couldn't coach in the NFL.
Probably not. That doesn't mean he wouldn't try.
Nah. He can't run the risk of failing. That would be too hard. That is a big boy league.
Okay,
now.
but here let's go there then, right?
But you realize Colorado could still only win 5 games.
Yeah, I expect them to be like 7-5 at best.
They're not going to have a winning record.
I said at best, like best case scenario. You know, maybe they catch Utah with a Cam Rising injury, which I still don't think will matter because their lines are going to kill Colorado. But at best, they go 7-5, which is an incredible year for Colorado coming off of 1-11, right? Like that's
for sure
a huge win for them. But the whole thing drives me crazy because he is a really good football coach. He obviously knows what he's doing, right? He's an incredible recruiter. He put together a really good staff, and he knows what he's doing when he's coaching football.
Is there anything more terrifying than being the boss of a for-profit organization that cannot control your employees?
I mean, no, probably not.
Yeah, that would be
especially when your employee is your entire business model.
Well, 100%.
That's where it becomes a problem,
so
right?
They were talking about the economic boom the last 2 weeks.
Around Boulder, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's like the LeBron and Cleveland effect. Restaurants and bars closed when LeBron left Cleveland for Miami. That's a real thing that happened. Their downtown area around the stadium died because nobody came to Cavs games anymore. Because I don't know if you know this, not Kyrie Irving, not that guy. But
you're such a hater.
Facts.
You're such a hater.
Facts. The thing that bothers me about Deion, though, is he actually has the clout that all these Instagram fools are chasing, and he acts like he's still chasing it anyway.
Okay, so when your players do video hits in giraffe costumes and they're hurt, what if that's just part of the DNA? It's not about what we give it. It's not. What if it doesn't have to be clout? Like if you're Travis Hunter and you're going to miss a couple of games, could you see Gabe Ervin doing that?
I couldn't see most adults doing that, but I give Travis Hunter a pass.
Wow.
Because he's a kid.
No, he's not. He's a young man. He's not a kid.
He is a young person still learning and developing and figuring out who he is.
Understood.
That's what I mean when I say he's a kid.
Okay, Michigan Lance.
Like, it's true, though, right?
No, it is.
I didn't know who I was or what I was doing or anything when I was in college. I was an idiot.
Yeah.
I think most college kids are. That's kind of goes with the territory, right?
To the 10th power.
So I give Travis Hunter a little bit of a pass. Deion's in his mid-50s. That man should know not better, but just I don't understand.
It's okay.
I just don't understand why it's necessary.
It's okay. We have the anti, and so we'll see if both processes can work.
I don't even think I'm not even saying it's about the football stuff. I don't even think it can't. It's not even whether I think it can work or not, because I think it can. I think he has enough personality to make it work in terms of getting the kids and getting the coaching staffs right. Him putting the coaching staff together is the most impressive thing about him so far for me as a football coach. I thought he put together a really, really good staff to be successful.
Speaking of which, can I say something?
Sure.
So for all the criticism that Coach Satterfield has received, because we're talking about putting together coaching staff, right? And I think we kind of thought, or we talked, in the coffee shops and stuff. Well, it's Satterfield. That's one guy I'm kind of interested to see. I want to know. And after the first 2 weeks, he was vilified quite a bit. Is he the same guy that gets credit for getting Harburg ready?
He should be. He's the quarterback coach.
Okay. I just asked the questions out loud because
it's fair. It's a fair question.
Okay, if he gets some of the criticism and the blame, he should get
This is a guy that
he should get a lot of the accolades too.
Harburg's a guy that wasn't even traveling with the team late last year.
Yeah.
Right. And all of a sudden you have to thrust him into a starting spot.
Who basically prepared physically to potentially play another position.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we heard Rule say, right? He's like, hey, do you want me to move? Do you want me to whatever? And he's like, well, if you want to play quarterback, why don't you give it a try? Like, that's where they were with Heinrich Harburg is, well, let's give this quarterback thing one more try. And then he starts a game, home opener, gets the first win of the Matt Rule era.
So I'm curious, not to put you on the spot, because I don't necessarily think that you were saying this. We were prepared to make some sweeping generalizations about Jeff Sims after 2 games, or actually a game, really. Yes, no. Now you're gonna couch it. You're gonna couch it.
I'm not couching it. I said I didn't think he was seeing the field well.
Okay, so
which I think it'd be hard to argue that he was.
So
I'm not saying he couldn't.
Let me ask you something.
Okay.
Does your barometer change when you're critiquing H2 without playing 2 Power 5 opponents?
No,
because I assume he'll play some against La Tech.
That's why I asked the question.
So are you ready to go there yet? Because because if you look at our comment sections and you look at social media,
no, I understand.
It's ride or die with H2.
That's why I asked Sam the question yesterday.
Yeah, there were so many people mad at Sam yesterday. They were not. It's okay.
I'd have to go back.
It seemed more of a fan.
Okay.
Good morning.
Vantage point than it did
sure
media yesterday.
But that's why I asked him the question: how is it fair to evaluate, right? Because I understand 2 Power 5 opponents on the road is different than 1 Group of 5 opponent at home, even if you think that's a good Group of 5 opponent, right? It's just different. Jeff Sims had a very different set of circumstances than Heinrich Harburg did. And Jeff Sims looked very different than Heinrich Harburg did, right? But we're not comparing apples to apples here in terms of the situations they were put in. And so I believe Heinrich Harburg showed that he is at least gives you an option at quarterback. If you say, hey, Jeff Sims is playing against Louisiana Tech, he's still making some of the same mistakes we saw against Colorado and Minnesota, but he's making them against Louisiana Tech at home, then I think you can say, okay, maybe we need to think a little bit more seriously about Heinrich Harburg. Or maybe Heinrich Harburg, for some reason, is playing against Michigan, and he's playing better than Jeff Sims did against Colorado and Minnesota. Then you can start having that conversation of, okay, maybe we need to look a little bit closer at Heinrich Harburg. As much as I was critical of Jeff Sims, I have really not gone all in on Heinrich Harburg should be your starter because they are really different situations.
I noticed you have yet to really
because I don't think that's true necessarily. I think what it does, what Heinrich Harburg proved on Saturday, is that you have an option. You have choices, which I think is good. They coach themselves into options with Heinrich Harburg.
Oh, I see what you did there. You used the DBism against me.
No, not against you. I don't think we're on opposite sides of this, are we?
No, we're not.
So, yeah, I think they did a really good job. Marcus Satterfield in particular did a really good job of getting a guy who was not in the plans at quarterback with the previous staff into a place where he's an option as a potentially legitimate starter for your football team. That's a huge deal. If you don't like the first 2 games, that's fine, but you have to give him credit for the third one.
That sounds like a pretty plausible.
I mean, I know we don't like to be like reasonable and measured here, but I think it makes sense.
Sometimes it's just not fun.
I don't know. I thought that was fun. That's our.
That's because it was your point to make.
Well, I am who I am. Just like Dion, I guess.
Just get some more ice in that thing before I lose my mind.
More Benning and Lulla coming up next.
We'll be right back in 4 minutes. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. Show with Ravi Lulla.
First and goal.
We'll be right back in 2 minutes. Show with Ravi Lulla.
First and goal. Back takes it in for the touch.
Watson awaiting Posix. Directs Alex Highsmith.
We'll be right back in 1 minute. We'll be right back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
First and goal at the 2. Brings Foster Morrow in motion. Tony Jones has it, cuts back, and Tony Jones scores his second touchdown of the game as he finally, the cutback works. He cuts it back, takes it in for the touchdown, and that is huge.
Watson awaiting Posix. Direct snap, and here it is. He wants to throw it. He does, and he throws it up to the 30. It's intercepted on a tip with that football. Alex Highsmith to the goal line.
touchdown, Pittsburgh on the first play. A 30-yard interception return by the young man out of Charlotte, Alex Highsmith.
Here we go, hour number 2 on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. Some NFL clips coming out of there from our guy, Shane Schillerberg. How do you feel about the effort of your Steelers last night?
I'm pretty tickled.
Yeah?
Yeah. It continues the streak of being good on Monday nights and at home.
I'm pretty tickled with the effort of George Pickens.
Yeah.
That was pretty good.
Dude, he's the real deal, man. Like,
we had this conversation.
Yeah.
Super fit, super talented.
He's the real deal.
And he's starting to put the production up.
So let me ask you something. How would you rank going forward? No, I'm serious. Because somebody asked me last night. I didn't get back to him. My man Lance asked me how I feel about Kenny Pickett long term. And somebody else asked me, how I felt about, if Pickett was my guy. And I like Pickett. I don't love Pickett. Sure. I love the Steelers, so you're gonna ride with him. I'm gonna ride with Pickett, right?
But that wouldn't be your first choice.
How would you rank the 4 quarterbacks playing you saw last night going forward?
Okay, so we've got Kenny Pickett, Bryce Young, Derek Carr. I always want to say David. It's been 20 years. I always want to say David. I kind of want to lean Pickett there.
Of the 4?
Because I'm out on Watson.
Interesting.
And listen, it's probably because I just think he's a skeeve, but
that's tough.
He also has.
By the way, who says that?
What, skeeve?
Yeah,
I don't know.
You just kind of going old school terms today.
Well, so when I know,
regardless of his play, it was a happy ending for the Steelers. So I'm always good with.
I'm making a happy ending joke with Deshaun Watson.
No, I'm just. I'm. I did. At no point was I really confident that the Steelers were going to pull that one out last night.
Yeah. Until TJ Watt kind of helps you out there.
He is so good, man.
He is
81 and a half sacks. Do you realize what it's like to be that franchise's sack leader?
No, that's a lot.
It is now, but I do keep it in perspective, right? They throw the ball so much more. So Ham and Lambert, there's a lot more opportunities to get after the passer. But Greg Lloyd, Green didn't play for them long enough. Chad Brown, they've had some fellas.
Yeah, they've had some good.
And imagine they overcame losing one of my favorite quick Steelers of all time, in Shazier.
Oh yeah.
Like I love Superman crush on Ryan Shazier.
Sure.
So I mean that's quite an accomplishment for TJ Watt.
No, it is. And
he is so explosive.
He really, which is funny because that was kind of the knock on the Wattses. Yeah. Is like physically, maybe they didn't pop the way some of the other, they're like, their motor's going to be great, but they don't athletically pop the way some of the other, like a Chase Young does maybe.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't, watching him play football, you wouldn't be like, yeah, there's nothing that man lacks athletically. Right. I know part of the thing with Deshaun Watson too is he's kind of gone a stretch now where he hasn't looked good. He's sort of bizarro.
He's 4. I'm asking Shane. That's not good. It's a sports question. He's 4-4 as a starter for the Browns now. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
But
his numbers last year going 3-3 or whatever.
4-3, I think.
Well, then he's.
Well, I think he's 4-3 as a starter. Going into last night.
Yeah. So now he's 4-4.
Okay.
So, but he won a game already this year, so he would have been 3-3 last year.
Correct.
Looked really, really bad. Has not looked a ton better this year. He's almost like you're going to hate this because I bring him up too much, but it's almost a bizarro Brock Purdy situation where I don't have a huge sample size about Brock Purdy, but I feel pretty good about him. I don't have a huge sample size of Deshaun Watson being bad after he came back from his time off, but I really don't feel good about him moving forward.
So he has this weird thing, and I think this was even like this with the Texans. He always kind of leaves you on the edge of your seat like it's about the improv.
Yeah.
Like there aren't a lot of things with him that happen in rhythm or kind of in system.
That happen on purpose.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He'd be like the consummate rally guy after a bad pass in volleyball.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a lot of out of system stuff, right?
Sure.
So it's like,
and maybe that's what it is, because that never feels sustainable to me in terms of creating consistent offense.
Yeah.
The out of system stuff, maybe you get away with it for a regular season. Come playoff time, that's probably coming to bite you. Maybe you only get away with it against mediocre to lower half of the league teams, but against the upper crust, you're not going to get away with it.
So you got Pickett ahead of Watson.
So
let's take the other two.
I don't know about Bryce Young yet. I just don't have enough.
Would it surprise you to know that he had the best rating of the quarterbacks last night in the loss?
I'd have to. Let me look at it.
He was like an 87 last night.
Yeah.
Carr had the lowest because he had
Yeah.
the no touchdowns in the pick.
Right, which messes you up pretty bad.
But is that surprising? So it would go if you just go by last night, which is too small of a sample size.
Sure.
It would go Young, Pickett, Watson, Carr.
Yeah. So
Did it surprise you that? I mean, he was like 22 of 33.
It wasn't spectacular. Like 180 yards.
Didn't turn the ball over.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, listen, I am probably not going to quibble with you on Pickett over Young.
I don't even know if I would have made that case. That's why I asked. Like, if I'm just like full disclosure,
like
because I like Pickett, I don't love Pickett. Now, I do think there's something about Pickett, and I saw this at the tail end of last year when he's kind of making this run when they turn him loose.
Mm-hmm.
He does appear to be a gamer.
Yeah,
now, but here, so I mean, full disclosure, I've never, ever, ever, ever been a Matt Canada guy. So it's very hard for me to separate the OC from
the quarterback.
Yeah. I remember Orgeron fired Canada after 1 year.
Mm-hmm. And no, that's a totally
go back to bed, Shane.
That's a totally fair point. And like I said, I don't feel real strongly about Pickett over Bryce Young. I think Bryce Young probably has a higher ceiling in terms of what he's capable of.
But wait though, let's hold that for a little bit.
Okay.
Don't we think about Bryce Young as being safe?
I don't.
Like, we don't think about Bryce Young as a high ceiling guy.
I think he's higher ceiling than Kenny Pickett.
So who do you think has the better physical attributes?
Well, Bryce Young's a little slight for me. That's what scares me about Bryce Young.
Pickett can run. He's got a good arm, not a great arm.
So I think part of it is college production that I'm dealing with here, if I'm being totally honest.
Yeah,
because Pickett was a slow burn in college. Like, it took him a while to figure it out.
But if you're talking about just raw talent,
I mean, maybe Pickett's better.
Pickett may be the better talent.
It's possible. And that's why
Young may be the more polished quarterback.
So I'm having a hard time separating the production I saw in college versus talent, if I'm being totally honest, because Bryce Young was productive from the jump and he was enormously productive.
Yeah.
Right.
Functioned at a high level with an average offensive line.
Yeah. Like, got them out of, like, covered over a ton of warts that now we're seeing at Alabama. Right.
Yeah.
And you look at them now and go, hey, yeah, maybe that offense was a lot predicated on Bryce Young being special, right? Kenny Pickett, because he took longer to become a productive college player, and then once he did, he was really, really high and productive, right? But I think I'm factoring that into, well, Bryce Young must be more talented because he figured it out faster. Well, Bryce Young had a better situation too. Like, he can have covered up a lot of blemishes.
I totally think the situation we undervalue that.
Which part?
The situations that quarterbacks step into.
Oh, I mean, most people might, but I certainly don't.
Right.
I am a firm believer that there's only a handful of would succeed anywhere guys. I don't think there's that many of them, and some of the best quarterbacks of all time, I don't think are in that category.
Even your boy, the Golden Boy down in Jacksonville, couldn't overcome
Urban.
Right,
100%.
Trevor Lawrence.
That's what I mean, and I can make an argument.
Now, and he's the highest of the high-end QB rating guys coming out, like grades.
And
he's Andrew Luck-esque.
Super high-end talent. Like, generational physical abilities.
God, you keep saying that.
I think he is.
I'm not riding with that.
Okay. Who do you think is more? Who would be that category physically for you as a quarterback?
He's
not
a
Justin Herbert.
He's not even Herbert. He's not even Aaron Rodgers.
I don't know. I think physically
gosh. See,
I think
you forget about peak.
No,
Aaron
I don't.
Rodgers. He could run. He could
don't
throw.
forget about peak Aaron Rodgers.
He had a hose. Lawrence is basically Stafford, sans the wins physically coming out of college.
Trevor Lawrence moves way better than Stafford.
Stop it. No way.
This dude was housing like 60-yard runs at Clemson.
When he did it the one time, everybody like lost their mind. They're like, "Oh, I didn't know he had that in him." Don't act like he was that dude.
I'm not saying he was taken off
when he
like Josh
did it.
Allen
When he did it, we were floored. Like they almost stopped the broadcast. Oh, Herb. It's like, never mind. I'm not gonna say what he did. But it's like, come on, man. Like,
I'm not saying he does it a lot, but he has to be physically capable of it.
Do you remember Stafford coming out of Georgia?
I don't remember Stafford ever being that mobile, if I'm being honest.
Man.
Am I misremembering? Was he more athletic?
No, you're over remembering Lawrence as being elusive. That's what's happening. The one time you saw, come on, man. No, seriously.
I'm trying to look something up real quick.
No, you can't.
Why not?
Because we're going off. This is like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's Total Recall. Get to the chopper. Although I think that was Predator.
That was Predator.
Stop, man. Nobody asked you.
Hey, we got into 80s action movies. Shane's ready to chime in.
Nobody asked you. Just because the 80s are in your wheelhouse.
I had Total Recall on that.
Oh my God. Okay.
Okay, so you don't want to call.
I had my Sharon Stone last night, so
you don't want to.
Maybe arm talent, but again, Stafford had elite arm talent. And listen, this isn't DB here for the Matt Stafford fan club. Even though I have always liked him more than most,
I have always thought he was really talented, and he was in a bad situation.
But
in Detroit, which kind of goes to our point.
Like we're kind of over.
I don't think we're overdoing with Trevor Lawrence. I don't.
Okay.
I think he's more talented physically than Joe Burrow.
Yeah, but that would be like, you're not going out on a limb.
Okay, well, Joe Burrow is like one of my favorite.
You said generational. He's not even the best talented. He's not even the most talented quarterback of the guys under 24 in the league. That's not generational. He's not even Herbert. That's my point.
You know how I feel about Herbert.
Doesn't matter.
I
didn't say he was a winner. You said generational talent.
Herbert and him are in the same neighborhood.
That's not true.
Okay, I mean that's fine. You can be wrong. That's not a big deal.
You in a good mood or what?
Like it's totally your right to be
Hey,
incorrect.
for those of you that aren't watching on YouTube, your ability to just casually shrug me off is comedy. Like he just was like, yeah. You said generational.
Yeah, I think he's in that category.
Bro, he's not even Andrew Luck. Stop.
Andrew Luck was a generational talent.
Now, at the time, I could kind of vibe with
when he was coming out and
I'm
early
telling
on.
you, Aaron Rodgers was.
I agree with you. I think Aaron Rodgers, talent-wise, is better than almost anybody we've ever seen.
Yeah, he's pretty unbelievable.
That's what I'm not discounting Aaron Rodgers, and I'm not calling Trevor Lawrence Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is of the young guys, physically, I'll put him up against anybody.
Yeah. He was so good at home against Kansas City as the chosen franchise this year that he had like a 60-some-odd rating, 5.3 per completion, no touchdowns, no picks.
He had a terrible game.
Well, against the vaunted Chiefs defense?
I mean, Chiefs defense has looked okay this year, but
no doubt to me about that.
I told you, though, the thing about the Chiefs, people sleep on their secondary. It's better than people think.
Yeah.
And they got a healthy Snead back.
You can't out of one side of your mouth say,
no, two things can be true at once. You can be overvaluing a guy's prowess and still give another team credit. Like, come on with that.
We're talking about physical ability. That doesn't prevent you from not having bad games.
Certainly not generational.
All right, fine. Whatever you want to call it, I'm going to call it generational.
No, it's an easy discussion. Lawrence isn't even Herbert physically.
And I think
they're both in the league. They're both in the league at the same time. So it's not generational.
So when I say generational talent, I don't mean there's only one guy. I mean, there's like the top tier in that generation talent.
I feel like this is a pound of flesh
semantics argument.
Dictionary lookup.
Probably. I mean, but that's how I define when I'm talking about a generational talent. I'm not saying there is one guy in that generation who is of that level. I'm saying over the course of, so what's a generation, like 15 years ish, 20 years?
I don't feel comfortable enough to put a exactly what she said. What she said.
All right, so the internet says 20 to 30 years. So I'm going to call it 20 on the short end because football career lives are shorter than regular life. So I'm going to call it 20 years. I would put him in talent-wise in the top tier we've seen for about the last 20 years.
Ken is on drugs this morning in our comment section.
Yeah, he's going wild.
Hey, babe, my generational talent. You'll be like, nah. Nah, babe.
No, we good.
Hard pass.
Listen. That's how I define generational talent. If you're in the top tier of your talent for that 15, 20-year period, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's the most talented. I'm saying he's in that top tier of talent.
Okay. Because in the last 15 years, we've seen at least 3 other quarterbacks that would surpass that. At least.
Okay, but does that make him an entire tier down from that top tier of
talent? No, but I mean,
I'm telling you how I defined it.
Yeah, because the goalposts have slightly went left to right.
Maybe in how you were defining it versus how I defined it, I've been defining it the same way in my
you
head.
Are
the whole time.
A slippery one. Wow, I kind of like it though. Very evasive, man. You like kind of remind me a little bit of Mayweather.
What? You just slipping all the punches?
Yeah, like slight shoulder turn, kind of subtle. Can't.
Looks like I got hit, but
no, he's getting crushed.
Just kind of parry that thing right away. Just don't even.
I like the term parry. Big fencing guy.
No, that's what they used to.
Bull riding, or bullfighting,
No, that's what they call it when you kind of like do one of these. So like slap the punch away a little bit. It's called a parry.
He touched it.
Well aware.
Well, you asked me if I'm into fencing
because I think that's where the term started.
Oh, I have no idea where it started. I just know it's what they call in boxing now. I don't know where it started. I'm not I know I look like it, but I'm not in the spelling bee right now asking for word of order.
Oh no, he did.
I'm too exhausted from being amazing yesterday.
I think we're putting Shane over the edge.
Oh, spelling bee though.
Yeah, I'm not asking for country of origin. I'm just, to me, it's a boxing term. So I was.
You said it, not me. Just say
there's a lot of Indian people in the spelling bee. That's all I'm saying.
FCC 888-638-4876. Ask for Ravi Lulla.
FCC can't be mad that I'm Indian and I'm like, hey, I look like an Indian. That's not a violation to be like, I am this thing and I look like it. Well, how is that? That'd be like you being like, hey, I'm black. Look, I look black. How's that a violation? Just self-awareness. You know what I mean?
Oh, I'm done.
I blame Dave Chappelle for this.
I'm so done.
What have you done?
So he waited till the very end to bring Bud up?
Yeah, so he brought him up. So, I mean, we got a few minutes here, and I don't think we're getting back to quarterbacks. So,
generational talent?
Dave Chappelle, generational talent.
Yeah, now that probably makes a little more sense.
Bud Crawford, generational talent?
Not talent, generational fighter. Generational fighter.
Okay, I'm not going to get into that right now.
Well, because I think even Bud would tell you that.
That's because Bud values his work over his talent.
Yeah.
But I don't. He's what he is because he's got both.
Now, there are very, very few people that can grow up the way he did, being able to use both feet and both hands.
That's what I mean. He is seamlessly switches stances.
He's done it his whole life.
His footwork is elite. And listen, I'm not saying he didn't work at it, right? But he's got the physical tools to be able to make it work.
Yeah, I won't debate that.
There's a lot of people that could put in that exact same amount of work. I'm not saying they would, but they could, and still wouldn't end up looking like Bud Crawford.
Yeah.
That's where I say
boxing is very, very, very much different when you talk about like natural gifts.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. But
I
I
mean,
also
because you can talk about a lot of guys with natural gifts that just aren't committed. You know,
Sure.
Adrian there's a lot of guys.
Well,
a lot of guys with natural.
It's the Buster Douglas of it all, right?
Yeah.
Incredible talent. Only ever figured it out for 3 months of it in his entire career.
Yeah.
And has one of the greatest moments in boxing history because of it, right?
You know an elite level boxing talent?
Who?
Riddick Bowe.
Yeah. Didn't seem like he actually liked boxing that much.
Yeah, he had other interests, right?
Yeah, he was incredibly good at boxing, didn't necessarily love it.
All right, so back to Bud.
Yeah, so Chappelle's talking about, one of the things I love about Chappelle is he'll say the most heinous things in the world, but he also kind of weaves in like inspiration throughout the entire thing. And his thing last night was, believe in kind of the impact of powerful dreams, of being a powerful dreamer, right? And so he's talking about this the whole time. And then he goes, in Omaha, you've got another powerful dreamer right here. And he's believed in the impact of his powerful dreams, and it made him champion of the world, basically. And so he brings up Bud Crawford at the very end to have his picture taken with the whole crew and everything. But it was, I don't know that it was louder the entire night. And it was pretty loud when Dave came out. I don't know if it was louder the entire night than when Bud Crawford
What'd they
gets up
get
there.
for numbers, do you think?
I think it was sold out.
Yeah.
It looked like it. I mean, it was because you had openers, so it was a little kind of slow arriving. But I think by the end of it, I couldn't see any empty seats if there were any. There might have been some like up top, but I wasn't up there.
Lord knows you weren't up top.
I was. What's that supposed to mean?
I had no way you were up top.
Well, he was on it quick. I mean, he was on it when it came out, so he got tickets.
I was,
right
yeah.
away.
I was sitting outside.
I was out there with him.
Yeah, I was standing outside while Shane was vaping when I got because the tickets went on sale on like 10 a.m. on a Tuesday or something. And so I'm standing outside. I had like my alarm set ready to go get my Dave Chappelle tickets. One of my brother, but
right. High-end restaurant guy, Dave Chappelle top ticket guys.
Man, don't come at me. I had one for you.
No, I know. I know.
Listen, you had to do family man. You do the right thing. I get it.
I took it down to the wire.
No, I get it. You're doing the family thing. I get that.
I took it down to the wire, and it was basically just me and Ryder last night.
Yeah.
Yeah. I almost got her to fall asleep without her mom, but that wasn't happening.
Not quite happening today.
Didn't quite have the touch.
That segment may have gotten away from us a bit.
Yeah, because a lot of hyperbole was going on.
Come on. What'd I do?
Move the goalposts.
What? No.
You lined me up for a 27-yard field goal attempt, and right when we broke the huddle, you moved it back to the 40.
Goalposts were in the same spot the whole time. I just gave you the glasses so you could see them a little bit better. We're about halfway through the show. More of Benning and Lulla coming up next.
Wow.
We will be back in 5 minutes. We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes. We will be back in 2 minutes.
Wants the ball. Jack Turner slings it out to Harris again. Bursts on the speed. Stays on his feet. Makes a man miss. Inside the 10. Inside the 5. Touchdown! Smoke Harris. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Jack Turner wants the ball. Jack Turner slings it out to Harris again. Bursts on the speed. Stays on his feet. Makes a man miss. Inside the 10. Inside the 5. Touchdown! Smoke Harris. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Jack Turner.
Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
We're back on a Tuesday. Well, I'm back at least. I think Damon's still reeling a little bit.
Kind of mad at you. Like, you literally just...
What did I do? Why are you mad at me? This is the Damon Benning Show.
Because this is what you do. Like, you have to stay sharp.
AM 590, ESPN Omaha, like, ESPN Tri-Cities.
You know, you're kind of bobbing and weaving. You're hard to get my hands on. It's like, you low-key, you did a lot that last segment. Like, you somehow found a way. You went super hyperbole. It bugged me.
I think I went maybe moderate hyperbole.
Then you went to a definition that was different than what it really means, and you used that as like your basis.
So I'm not trying to change the definition for you. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to.
There was a lot going on in that last segment.
When I do that, and I'll admit I do that a lot. We had the pound of flesh thing on the Dish and Ish pod last week that we finally found some common ground on.
That was really good.
We were like back to back bangers on the Dish and Ish pod. I think.
I don't know if I'll ever use the term banger, but when other people use it,
you're okay with it.
It's okay.
Yeah.
I would feel awkward using that.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's words I feel awkward using that I'm okay with other people saying.
Well, apparently not. Can you spell?
I'm only okay.
I forgot you're good at standardized tests too.
Dude, nailed them. fell asleep during the ACT, still got that banger score. No, man. when I'm giving you my definition for something, I'm not trying to change your definition of it. I'm trying to provide context to what I'm saying. So when I say generational talent, you'll be like, oh, he's not generational talent. Then I explain in my head. I'm not saying it's right.
Like, of course not.
No, I'm not.
I'm just saying it to be saying it.
I'm saying that's what it is in my head. Right? So the context of what I say a generational talent is.
Like Nelly and Tim McGraw?
May not. Over and over again.
Because it's all in my head.
It kind of is. I mean,
no, you are Nelly and Tim McGraw. No, you're closer to Tim McGraw than you are Nelly. But... No, I meant because you're tall.
I'm 5'9".
Oh, it's all relative.
I mean, in my community.
No. Oh, let me pull a Ravi. When I say tall, what I really mean is next to the guy that has like dwarfism. That's what I meant when I say tall.
Yeah, I'm the tallest
of the short people.
In my specific community, I am actually pretty
Randy
tall.
Newman.
In the Indian community, I am on the tall side.
By the way, did I tell you about going by the pickleball courts the other day?
A lot of Indian folks over there. It's true. Every time I go out there, a lot of my people are playing Indian ball or pickleball, not Indian ball.
I'm done. Shane. I'll be back tomorrow. Would you stop?
No, I went out to the Grove, like, I don't know.
All right, I'll see you tomorrow.
And I'm I
feel like I should leave.
I went to Miller North, so all my friends are white, basically. And so
here we go.
I went to I was playing pickleball with a bunch of my Miller North.
You guys think I'm bad.
Well, well, when we were out playing pickleball with a bunch of my friends, and so it's like I'm the one Indian guy, and there's a bunch of my white friends. And then on the other court, it's like the other 3 courts, it's all Indian people. I lean over to my friends. I go, I feel like I'm on the wrong side of the fence.
Welcome to my world. Excuse me.
We got a couple calls on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. We need Michigan Lance to set us straight.
Oh, here we go.
I can't imagine this is going to make things any better. Lance, what do you got for us?
Good morning. Hey, good morning, guys. Yeah, this is probably not going to get any better. Hey, me and DB had a conversation yesterday, and I had brought up like public school kids, and I think that and David knows I'm a straight shooter. I think he thought I was talking about a certain type of kid, and there's different type of groups of people. All right, and so when I was saying public school, DB, I wasn't necessarily saying like a project kid or a trailer park kid, which are pretty much the same, but they probably just look different, as far as the color of their skin. But but I wasn't going that far. But growing up in public school, there's different survival techniques.
Yeah, I understand. I understand.
Whether you're smart,
average. I was bugged by the public versus private debate.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't talking about better. I was just talking about just certain things you had to do to,
I understand.
Survive. You know what I mean, on a day-to-day basis. Now that is different. I'm pretty accurate on that. That's I've done both.
Kind of like Michigan, that just drive to drive, just low key, slowly bludgeoning folks.
Yeah. Hey man. Hey, that's been a bright spot. And
are you
what's
sure?
been a low spot is the Bears.
Wait a minute.
Are
you sure Michigan is a bright spot?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have a coach for 4 games and still put up 30 points a game. I mean, they were rotating coaches. Like who does that? Like
Michigan.
I mean, did you expect them to put up 60? Right. I mean, 60 a game or 50 a game without the head coach. I mean,
it's just they're gonna play in a way. It's a really slow burn.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, most definitely, and it's they'll lull you to sleep, man. You better be careful. Hey, oh boy, he's doing all right. We'll see with some tougher competition. Can he make some?
You talking about
throws?
Oh, okay.
JJ?
You're talking about McCarthy?
Yeah. I'm not totally sold yet, man. You got to show me something. He looks better so far. I can tell, but
it's
I
like
need to
he's
see him
playing
in those big
catch.
game situations. Yes, he does look more comfortable. I give him that. I can see the difference, but
he's a lot bigger and stronger too.
Yeah, I want to see, Ohio State. He's beat Ohio State, but I want to see, you know what I mean? Those guys are wide open. He was throwing to. You know what I mean? Let me see you throwing in some coverage against them and just make winning plays. That's all I want to see. Can you make some winning plays against tough teams to get us over because it's a championship team. That's the expectation. You know what I mean? It's a national championship team.
You know what? I think you're going to like Gavin Wimsatt, too, from Rutgers. He's a good quarterback. He's a really good quarterback.
I've been watching him. Yeah. I've been watching. How about, it's good quarterbacks all the way around, isn't it? I mean,
if you're in the Pac-12.
Right. Well, yeah, because the SEC looks.
I don't know what's going on in the Big Ten West with their quarterback play. Like that's.
Oh well, yeah, but it's always been like that. I mean, the Big Ten West has never put out. You know what I mean? So some guys. I mean, look, it took Aiden Connell 7 years of college football to play decent.
Listen, I know one thing. He looks like he's going to be a good pro.
Yeah, he does. Well, he should. I mean, he's been in college a long time, and he's an adult. So he's an adult in the room. Ain't that what you like to say, DB?
Yep.
Is our guy still the backup at Eastern Stick? He's still on the Chargers, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, give him a chance. I'm not a Herbert guy. DB, you love those Chargers quarterbacks.
I don't listen. I don't.
You like Phillip Rivers. You like Herbert. Like these days, those guys are great on paper, but they don't win you anything.
This is get DB misquote DB day.
First of all,
I don't love any of those guys. Second of all, I made the case that Phillip Rivers was a Hall of Famer based on his statistical prowess. I don't love Phillip Rivers. I just liked him more than most. Now with Justin Herbert, since you folks keep putting words in my mouth, he is a supreme talent. He hasn't won a goddamn thing. And I also said, if I had to take a quarterback under the age of 25, it wouldn't be Justin Herbert. I would take Ravi's man crush in Trevor Lawrence. So let's get that straight, okay? I don't love Herbert, but he is a generational talent. I don't love Fudge. I love me some me. That's who I love. And I love kids.
Hey, is there a lot of generational talent? I mean, I don't know, man. I'm just, you know how I am with that. You know, the Aaron Rodgers guys. Hey, Aaron Rodgers
is a generational talent, though. I don't care about the results. He is.
I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree. And you know who's playing like him? I like Shedeur Sanders, but he is actually playing like Aaron Rodgers. He will not throw a ball.
He does not put the ball in harm's way, but he is not physically as gifted as Rodgers. He better stop holding the ball, or he's not going to finish the season.
Wait, that's what Rodgers does. Hey, you know that's why he got them low picks. He doesn't throw it anywhere. Hey, he's tucking that thing, but everybody loves him. He's great. But okay,
you're such a hater,
Lance. We appreciate the call as always. Hey, David, hang on the line here. We've got Stephen Jones coming up for Penn State, but we can get to you after that. We've got more of Benning and Lulla coming up next.
We'll be right back in 4 minutes. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We'll be right back in 1 minute. We'll be right back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Lambert Smith split to the far side, who comes in motion toward us, sets up on the left wing. Katron Allen, right side to the goal line. Touchdown, Penn State. The Nittany Lions cash in the Daquan Hardy interception and now have a 2-score lead. Potts is now the running back to the right of Aller. From the 11, Far Ash attacking the end zone to our left. Two left, two right. Pitch it to Potts. Waits. Wants to throw. In the end zone. Warren keeps the feet in bounds. Touchdown, Penn State. Trey Potts throws the touchdown pass on the halfback option. And the Nittany Lions lead it 22-7.
We're wrapping up hour number 2 here on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. Want to talk to you real quick about Pratt Dental. You go there to Dr. Pratt for the BioClear method out in North Platte, Nebraska. BioClear method and modern smile design can correct many aesthetic dilemmas in a permanent and less invasive manner than traditional treatments. You're going to have fewer appointments, less invasive, and less time waiting. Call Dr. Pratt, 308-221-2800. That's Pratt Dental. Now we are joined by Steve Jones. He does play-by-play for Penn State football. Steve, how are you this morning?
Guys, it's great to be with you.
Steve, good morning. Good morning.
Hey, let's start off here at the quarterback spot. We've been talking a lot of quarterbacks, good, bad, and ugly this morning. And that could kind of describe a little bit of Drew Aller so far this year. Started off really, really well against West Virginia. It got a little bit uglier as Penn State played their first conference game against Illinois. Still hasn't thrown an interception yet, but some of those numbers crept down, not where you would want them against the Illini. How has he looked to your eyes so far this year, and where's your level of confidence on where he'll be moving forward?
Terrific young quarterback. He had drops on Saturday, so that's not going to help the numbers. He also missed a couple of passes too, which is numbers. But he is an outstanding prospect. He's just coming off his third start. Great arm, really moves well in the pocket. He's quicker when he gets out of there than people realize. I mean, he's a next level talent, and we're just seeing really him scratch the surface right now as to what he can do in his career.
So, Steve, let me ask you this: you get the prowess, right? You mentioned all the attributes that he has as a quarterback, and obviously you want to get a little more dynamic outside the numbers, and you got some young guys that are capable of being that guy. But how do you balance it with the strengths of your team, like Allen and Singleton, I mean even Prabula? It's Prabula, correct? Let's just call him Bo. Like, you guys are able, you're cranking out 5 per. You want to play a certain way, but you have to play to your strengths. How long before you think you get a sense of what that will actually be for this year?
Well, what's really great about a situation where you have a quarterback that can throw it and some running backs that can obviously get the job done on the ground is that if something's not working on a particular day, you can go someplace else. So there are going to be some days where this running game is going and it's going to set up the pass. There are going to be some other days where they're stacking the box and the passing game will be put up in such a way where it's going to then unleash the running game to get people out of the box. Versatility on offense means so much. Strength both areas. Now teams have to make that quote, to use maybe a bad word in this era, but a bet as to what, how they want to play it. Okay.
No pun intended with Iowa coming up. It's fine, Steve. I didn't get it.
Yeah,
I didn't get it.
I knew I couldn't flip anything past you guys. So it's, but that's what defensive coordinators have to do. So Illinois is a one-high safety team. One-high safety team means that you can put 7 to 8 in the box.
Yeah.
Brett Bielema wanted to take away the running game. Penn State then was able to go outside and throw the football. The problem was when you have 5 drops, of which 4 of them would have been first downs, then it takes away this marvelous idea of using the pass to set up the run because you have to be exponentially more consistent in making those plays because those throws were there. It's just a question of them reeling it in. It's just one of those days. And they won by 17.
Yeah.
So let's not pretend this was Wyoming and Texas in the fourth quarter. It wasn't.
Steve, I'm wondering about just kind of the whole James Franklin experience at Penn State because he's been there. What is his 10th year? I mean, it seems crazy. He's been there for 10 years already. Kind of hit the little bump in the road in 2020 and 2021. Seemed to get things back on track last year. As you start off 3-0 in the top 10, what are sort of the expectations for his ability to get Penn State past that kind of 11-2 mark and maybe into the college football playoff discussion?
Well, it's a good problem to have.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, you're not trying to go. What's it going to take to go from 4-8 to whatever? You're trying to get past 11-2, and this is the deepest football team he's had. It's probably the deepest team Penn State's had since 2008. And deep means that you can be a fresher team in the fourth quarter. Deep means you have the ability, if something were to happen to a player, to have a better chance of overcoming it. Deep also means that when you put somebody in the game, there's not going to be a perceived drop-off when they put somebody else in the game. And that's what, to me, that's what depth means. Ohio State has had that for years. Michigan has been having it more recently. Penn State, I think, is now there in terms of the depth on its football team. So they've done a great job of recruiting to it. It's really one of the more athletic teams I've seen here at Penn State, especially on defense. They get almost all those guys can run.
It's another whiteout game. I mean, just playing a little over 500 against Iowa there. You guys have had some crazy games there against Iowa. 2 teams coming in that give up about 23 points a game total. How much of this will be a script that you feel like you have a good idea of what's going to happen because of these defenses and the way you play football versus how wild it's been in this series in terms of the style of these games?
Iowa plays the same way every year, which is, and I mean that as a compliment to Kirk Ferentz. They don't turn the ball over.
Yeah.
They don't commit a lot of penalties. If it's not going well offensively, they're more than happy to punt the ball with Taylor, who's one of the better punters in the country, because they want to play the field position game. It's a team that is not going to hand you anything on a silver platter. You have to be the one that has to take it from them. The key to me is going to be which team can get to the lead and then play with the lead. because Penn State is the team as I think anybody would feel would have the ability to come back from a deficit. But Iowa, you're not so sure they could come back from a deficit. That's why, to me, getting to the lead and then playing with that lead is going to be really important, especially in this atmosphere Saturday night.
Steve, it seems like eons ago since Clifford came back to replace Levis in 2020. But that can kind of surprise some folks too. All bets are off when Iowa travels to Happy Valley, given the fact that these games have been so topsy-turvy. Is that kind of what you're expecting?
Well, you know what? When they put the schedules together, if you notice over the years, Penn State's played Iowa a lot in a crossover game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because they were trying to make some of those crossover games as even as possible based on past history. And that was really the philosophy of the Big Ten. And that's the way it's played out. I mean, they have been a lot of really good, hard-fought, close football games between the two. Penn State winning on the final play of the game in Iowa in 2017. What Iowa was able to do 2 years ago, coming from behind to beat Penn State in Iowa City. So, I mean, they have matched up well together over the years, and most of the games have been really close and in the fourth quarter.
Steve, I know that the coaching staff and players can't really afford to think about this, but us in the media can kind of look ahead a little bit. How advantageous do you think it is the way their schedule sets up? They get Iowa, then they have a couple lighter games with Northwestern and UMass, then they have Ohio State, then it's Indiana and Maryland, and then they have Michigan. You don't have to go back-to-back on any of those, probably the most heavy hitters on the schedule. How much do you think that matters? Because it seems like the schedule actually kind of breaks Penn State's way.
Yeah, especially when you factor in the bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the bye's in a really good spot. It's after week 5. Then you come back with your homecoming game against UMass, and then you get into the Ohio State game that you're talking about. But that's smart scheduling by the Big Ten. Let's give the conference some credit for what they were able to do with the schedules. You don't want it to be murderer's row with, quote, what you perceive to be your top teams. You want to be able to put it in such a way where you can set up a big game in October, Penn State, Ohio State, a big game in November, Michigan and Penn State, big game at the end of the season, Ohio State, Michigan. That's great for the TV contract. It's great for the conference. And it keeps a team from playing, whether it's Michigan, Ohio State, or Penn State, playing everybody consecutively. That way, if you notice the schedule that at least the original one put out for 24 and 25, now they'll obviously have to change with Washington and Oregon. You notice that Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, USC, they don't play all three of the other opponents. See, that's the kind of smart scheduling that if it's done in such a way, it gives the conference a better chance of getting teams into the college football playoff, which is where the payoff is going to be moving forward. And the conference has to think that way. They can't just sit there and just willy-nilly go about doing it. Now, it should be pointed out that on a scale of 1 to 10, the Manhattan Project's a 10, scheduling's less than a 1.
So you're saying the conference doesn't have Oppenheimer running things back there.
Wow.
Steve Jones, he does play-by-play for Penn State football. Steve, we really appreciate the time.
Oh, thanks, Steve.
Guys, I really enjoyed it. Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.
What a walk-off by Steve on the Warhorse.
He's got a talk show. He's pretty good.
Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. Remember, you can go to Warhorse Casino in Lincoln, Nebraska, the best place to place your sports bets in the state of Nebraska. No bets, no glory. That's the Warhorse Sportsbook. More of Benning and Lulla coming up next.
We'll be right back in 4 minutes. We'll be right back in 3 minutes.
I think their D-line is exclusive. And I liked the way some guys stepped up, like Lindenmeyer, Levy, coming in that 22 personnel package at the end of the game and run an outside zone. That's kind of their role. They don't have many other roles to get that game back to that game. They stepped up and made those blocks. So Anthony gets the long run, and everyone's like, hey, great, but it was like Levy did, like he sees Levy coming in. First of all,
we'll be right back here in 2 minutes. Schaefer.
First of all, I'll say this. I think Illinois is a really good football team. In the game, they run an outside zone. That's kind of their role. They don't have many other roles to get that game into that game. They stepped up and made those blocks.
Covering the cup. We'll be right back in 1 minute. We'll be right back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents The Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
First of all, I'll say this. I think Northern Illinois is a really good football team. And I think their D-line is explosive. And I liked the way some guys stepped up, like Lindenmeyer and Liebenbrick come in that 22 personnel package at the end of the game, and we'll run an outside zone. That's kind of their role. They don't have many other roles in that game plan for that game. They stepped up and they made those blocks.
Welcome back to hour number 3 of the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. We are live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, the H&H Chevrolet studio. We're on AM 590 ESPN Omaha and on ESPN Tri-Cities in central Nebraska. Hour number 3 means we are also on KFOR in Lincoln. We welcome all of our friends listening in on KFOR as well. Speaking of friends, got to tell you about our friends at Dingman's Collision Center. That's right. Dingman's Collision Center is practically family. I met Darcy and the kids on Friday at the Breakfast Blitz, and I appreciate that she understood my dislike for children.
Well, kind of. She has her own. But
no, but she was, every time they interrupted our conversation, she apologized, which was unnecessary, but I appreciated it. But you know what else I appreciate? Dingman's. They've been in business for 25 years. family-owned and family-run business. And in all honesty, Darcy's kids were very well behaved. They were very good.
You guys are such suck-ups.
4 locations throughout the metro area, including a standalone mechanical shop at 120th and Maple. Voted first place Best of Omaha for 18 years running. And they care about the community. Make sure you check out dingmans.com to learn more about their give back program. For every car repaired, they take a little bit and give back to the community. That's one of the many reasons we love our friends over there at Dingman's. As we are efforting our friend Mike Schaefer here.
Never can tell with old Schaefer.
Is there anything you'd like to address from the last couple segments that have gotten away from us a little bit?
I just don't. I'm not very appreciative of your delivery.
What did I do?
You know exactly what you
No, I don't really. I would let's have a little therapy session here, a little couples counseling. What's going on?
Because the real therapy session, I think, right now is can you imagine what's going on in Lincoln right now with it's not a scramble. It is truly the next man up principle, right?
Sure.
You saw it with the quarterback spot, and who knows how that thing's going to play out, because as you can see, Coach Rule was very non-committal in terms of giving away the secret sauce, and they still got to piece together the backfield. I get all these great hypothesis on what lack of running back production actually means for the quarterback spot, which I think is kind of weird.
How so?
Because I think I obviously want excuse me.
Speaking of next man up, we got Schaefer.
All right. Well, I'll finish this thought after we get to Mike J, because he's probably patiently waiting. Or was that vice versa?
I think we were patiently waiting, but that's all right. We love our guy, Schaefer, from Husker 24/7. Schaefer, how you doing this morning?
Thanks. Good. Thanks for the shade. It looks like it's going to be a little bit sunny out there today. I appreciate it.
See, I think it's
Damon missed that entirely. He was so ready to say whatever he was going to say.
And I was like, wait a minute. I think we just got
snuck it onto the table.
Schaefer, I'm most disgusted in myself because it's been happening to me all morning, and I feel like
what I do.
I'm either letting my guard down or I'm getting old, but I am getting worked, and I'm just usually a lot better. I think I've met my match in terms of a goalpost mover. So,
whoa.
Wow.
That is uncalled for.
Wow. Okay.
My man can change real life definitions, and
I just like to give context to how I'm thinking about things. I think that's reasonable.
Can I just ask Mike J, because he plays it pretty close to the
Sure,
best.
yeah, why not?
Mike J, for you, what's a generational talent mean?
It's got to be a guy that everyone, whether they're super into the game or whether they're just kind of like watching because they're in the room, can tell that player's one of the 2 best players on the field, maybe the best player on the field. Like if we're saying generational talent, it needs to be more than that guy had, a nice game or has a nice season. It has to stack up for at least a few years. And we have to talk about like the guy could be considered an all-time great.
Do you think can you even remotely be close to a generational talent if you're not the best talent in your current situation?
No.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
hold on. Define situation, because
he's not even the best talent in the NFL at his position. So he can't be a generational talent.
No, because what Schaefer just said was, can he be the best player on the field? And most times
he wasn't better than Mahomes on Sunday.
Nobody's better than Mahomes.
Then he's not a generational talent.
I'm not saying he's the best player in the league. I'm saying he's generational talent.
He's not.
Who are we talking about?
Trevor Lawrence.
Oh, I don't think Trevor Lawrence is a
just nobody does. Don't worry.
All right.
Trevor Lawrence isn't even a better talent than Justin Herbert.
Okay.
He just doesn't. Herbert just doesn't win as many games.
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean,
Lawrence isn't Andrew Luck. He's not. He's not Aaron. He's not Aaron Rodgers.
You don't think he's as talented as Tua?
Oh, I take Tua over Trevor Lawrence.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. I mean, we could do we need to look at the numbers?
No, because
No,
the
I'd like
numbers
to
support the numbers support you, Schaefer.
No, I'd like to look at the cat
we
stand
need
and
to-
see who's going to be playing in 3 years.
Oh no.
That's fine. Like maybe he gets knocked out of the league, but that doesn't mean he's less talented than Trevor Lawrence.
I mean, isn't the best ability availability? That's all I'm saying.
I've never really been the one who's like, oh, that guy has a less of a concussion risk, so he's a better football player.
I mean, it's hard to be talented when you're not on the field. That's all I'm saying. Hard to be talented when you're not playing.
Oh,
absolutely right, Robbie.
Hard to be
That
talented
Bo
when you're not
Jackson
playing.
Bo Jackson was just trash. You can't stay on the field. You know, you're not good when you're not on the field. Everybody knows it. Degenerative hip issue.
Oh,
That guy sucked. That's why he's not in the league.
Listen, availability is the best ability. All right.
Oh, Schaefer's the best guy to get started because he's an equal opportunity offender.
I'm just saying.
I've been on the receiving end of these.
You can't even put. Listen. Okay, Bo Jackson, incredibly talented. You can't even put him in like an all-time great. Everybody say, "Oh, he's the best overall athlete of all time," because he wasn't ever on the field for football. You can't put him in that conversation. But we've had like 2 years.
I'm not even trying to say that Bo Jackson's overall great. I'm just saying you can know a guy that's really good at something even if he can't play.
Yeah, we can know a guy's super talented if we never actually see the talent. You're 100% right.
We saw the talent of Tua Tagovailoa. Are you trying to say you haven't seen talent out of Tua Tagovailoa?
I don't think he's nearly as talented as Trevor Lawrence. I would take Trevor Lawrence's talent any day of the week over Tua's.
Okay.
Hey,
Bo Jackson is a generational talent.
I would probably be more in agreement with that, certainly, than Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, Bo Jackson's one of the best athletes of all time. I'm not saying Trevor Lawrence is that. I defined what I meant by generational talent. You don't like the definition. That's fine. I'm okay with you not liking the definition.
Hey, Shay, have you ever seen anybody have to kick an extra point or a field goal in a goalpost that's in like the right-hand corner of the end zone?
No, here's what
I mean, that would suck.
This is not moving the goalpost.
Are you playing football or pool?
You were faced at the sideline and being like, should I kick the ball this way? And I said, no. I'm asking you to kick it over here. And you're like, I don't want to kick it over there. That's what happened.
That's not true.
That's exactly what happened. You're like, I was like, hey, actually, on my field, this is where I put the goalpost. It's not moving. It's going to be right there. It's always right there. But it maybe is not where you're used to.
Oh, Lord.
It's more of a baseball fence, right? You know, in different ballparks, they're in different situations. I might have a little bit of a Fenway Park thing going on with the green monster. But once you know it's there, you can get your little pop-ups over the home run, the wall there, right? Like, just because that's not a home run in Yankee Stadium doesn't mean it's not a home run still.
Mike J., I know this is the position you thought we were going to be in a week later.
I love it.
My guy's out here playing in the Polo Grounds, and he's mad I'm playing at Fenway.
Well,
you playing a bandbox, so it gets inflated numbers, kind of like the argument.
Yeah, it's 460 to dead center, like old Detroit Tiger Ballpark out here. And he's like, hey, you don't have any power because you can't hit it out to dead center.
Are you still mad over Mookie Betts? Is that we get the Fenway reference?
Always mad about Mookie Betts. Well, and then Shane plays a JD Martinez cut. I love Julio Daniel, and he can't get me any. He's just always playing ex-Red Sox cuts over here while they're dropping every game and going below 500 for the second straight year, firing their GM over.
Shave, Robbie's he's in a good headspace, and it's primarily because he's mad about Gabe Urban. Did you think a week later we would be struggling for running backs to fulfill roles like Trevin Lubin? You're on the Price is Right. Come on down.
Hey, look, you had a nice carry at the end of that game. You know, it was.
I mean, how odd is that? Like, did you hear Gabe Urban after? At what point did we think Gabe Urban was like it was going to be? It was really bad.
I had no idea. I mean, so full disclosure, yesterday I was out of pocket, was just completely off the grid. And by the time I resurfaced at around 2:00 and was looking at my phone, and I'm seeing some of these text messages come in from friends, and I'm just like, what did I miss?
Yeah.
So I mean, for me, it was I had to call Brunts and get filled in. I mean, I didn't see this coming today. Ramir Johnson, you know, the street closed, like that's never a great sign as early as it happened on Saturday. So I wondered if he wouldn't be out for, you know, a little bit. But I don't think Gabe Irvin just being done was on my radar or really anybody else's. And Nebraska's, you know, running back depth gets cut down in a hurry. But that's it's a challenge of football. I mean, you have to build depth. You have to have guys ready to go. I mean, so next man up. It's just how this always seems to work.
How much of what you think we'll see from the running back spot has to do with, all right, because obviously Lacey, and I really like Emmett Johnson, and of course I'm a Grant guy. I never pass up the opportunity to say something good about Lubin. However it works has to do with things other than running the football to play in this offense.
I think that's a portion of it. You said Lacey. Did you mean like Quentin Ives?
Ives, I meant not
okay.
not the incoming. I meant Ives.
I know that EJ Barthel
As in the lotion
really likes Quentin Ives, and so I wouldn't be surprised if we see him get a little bit of run in there too. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, they're going to want guys that can do the simple things. People get really mad about this. It hasn't mattered which running back coach says it, but they need guys that can pass protect. I mean, they need guys that can step up and take care of blitzers. I mean, they need guys, if they're going to have a quarterback run game, some of the best blocks that occurred on Saturday, Gabe Ervin was throwing those. So, the running back role isn't just you stand back there and you get handed the ball and you're told to run to daylight. Like they need these guys to be able to do a lot of different things. And so the loss of Gabe Ervin isn't just what he could do carrying the football. It was how he was helping you in other ways. And, I think they're relatively fortunate. You still have Anthony Grant, who carried a heavy load for you last year, and I think wants every single carry that he can get on the planet. But obviously, there's still a little bit of concern with the fumbles there and everything else. So we'll see. We'll see how this all plays out.
Schaefer, do you think at all with the emphasis that you're going to need to put on blocking and things like that we possibly might see some Bonner or Liebenbritt at a kind of in a one back situation like that? Do you maybe get the fullback involved in that running back room a little bit?
I think it's definitely a possibility. Look, I think they have to consider every kind of avenue here as they try to figure out what this offense is. I mean, you're 3 weeks into the season. You just had your first game where you displayed any kind of rhythm whatsoever. And now you're down to talking about your fourth and fifth string running backs, talking about, how you're going to navigate this. I mean, it's definitely been a tough start for them offensively. And, oh, by the way, your quarterback situation is going to be somewhat unsettled, at least in the near term. So good luck, I guess, is the best way to phrase it.
So did it seem like Nebraska played 29 guys on defense to you?
Yes, it did. I mean, they part of the thing, we're sitting up there in the press box and I've got Brunson, BC, and those guys are basically just always kind of going back and forth. So-and-so just came in. So-and-so is here. So you hear a lot of that, and I'm sitting right in the middle of those two guys, and it's just like you felt like you heard every name on defense at one point in time. And so one of the things I've said this repeatedly, I liked how Tony White phrased it last week in his media thing. They have done a really nice job building depth in a hurry on defense because, as he said, if you show him something in practice, you will get a opportunity. If you show him something in that opportunity, you are going to get more opportunities to ultimately prove that you earned it. And so that style is only going to allow more guys to get on the field and then start to show that they deserve those opportunities. And then if you start to have defensive injuries, which all of it seems to be on the offensive side of the ball, but if you start to have, critical defensive injuries, you have guys ready to go in those situations. I think that's really valuable.
Schaefer, we've been talking a lot about quarterback, obviously, and quarterback run game. In 2 of the 3 games, the quarterbacks have carried it for 19 and 21 times, respectively, between Sims against Minnesota and Harburg against Northern Illinois. I mean, do you expect that to be much more the norm now with the situation of the running back room and the fact that you feel like maybe you have 2 QBs that are capable of shouldering some of the load? Are you expecting to see 15 to 20 pretty much every week now?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it kind of feels like that has to be a part of your offense. The passing game continues to kind of be a little bit iffy. And then, I don't know that you're at a point where you can just put 30 carries on Anthony Grant a game. So the quarterback running game is going to be a piece of this. And, I think we're going to see both of those quarterbacks a fair amount kind of the rest of the year, because I just don't know what the health situation is going to be. If you can get, let's say you have Jeff Sims back this week and he plays well in his opportunity against a group of 5 opponent, but you have to run them 18 times. I just don't know that that's sustainable to ask either of those guys to make it through the rest of the season by themselves, averaging 15 carries a game. So in addition to, however many times you get hit throughout a game as a quarterback. So that's definitely going to be something to watch. But the quarterback running game now, to me, has just been elevated even more because of these injuries.
All right. So along those lines, stay right there. Does the emergence of handoff run game make a case for either Harburg or Sims, or is the fact that it may not be as deep as they wanted to, does that make a case for either Harburg or Sims?
I don't know that either one should. I think the case for Harburg or Sims should really just come down to if Sims in his next opportunity, which I think is going to happen. Like, I don't think this is just going to be the Heinrich Harburg show from here on out. But if Sims in his next opportunity continues to turn the ball over, that has to be the thing that guides everything. Because if you're, it sounds absurd, but if he's still averaging 3 turnovers a game, you just can't play him. I mean, you just can't. So I think that more than what happened at your running back spot should dictate that. And so, if Sims plays against Louisiana Tech or Michigan or whomever, whatever his next opportunity, and he comes away and he only has 1 turnover, that in itself is progress. And if your offense can continue to find ways to put up points, then I think you can move forward with that. But if he comes out and he has a bunch of turnovers, then I think you have to go back to Harvard.
Schaefer, I'm kind of thinking about reps for Louisiana Tech and getting ready for Michigan, right? If in your mind, kind of where's the percentage of health would you want to put Jeff Sims out there at least for some time against Louisiana Tech? Because I don't know. I mean, at least tell me if I'm wrong here. I don't know that maybe you really want to keep him out for 2 weeks and then just throw him to the Wolves at Michigan. Ideally, you'd like him to get some run this week, right?
Yeah, we're of the same mind of this. I really feel like the guy who plays bulk, or if whoever plays all of it against Louisiana Tech has to be the guy against Michigan. I just think that's a really tough ask to miss 2 weeks and then be dropped into what is the toughest game on your schedule against an incredibly physical team that we've already talked about turnover issues. Then you're putting him against a defense most likely to kind of probably turn him over. So I would have a tough time imagining if Jeff Sims doesn't play at all against Louisiana Tech, asking him to come back against Michigan almost seems like you're setting him up for failure. And I don't believe that Matt Rule or Marcus Satterfield wants to do that.
Schaefer, when you're taking a look at the emergence of guys to throw the ball to, is it as simply as having a healthy Marcus Washington becoming the guy, or do you like the emergence? And let's keep tight ends out of it for a second. I'll let you get to that in a second. Or is it simply about the more the merrier at the wideout spot?
Well, so the tough thing with Marcus Washington is he's never had a game at Nebraska where he's had 100 yards, I believe. Or if he has, it's maybe one time. But I don't think that's happened yet. I don't know how many games where he's had more than 5 catches. He just feels like he's a really solid 2 to 3 catch a game guy, which is really good. Like, you need that. And as your second wide receiver, that's important. But at this point, because he doesn't feel like he's really a game breaker or even just such a possession wide receiver that you get that much value out of it that way, it feels like it's the more the merrier. Like they have to have other guys sort of step in there, because I just don't know, as I look at Marcus Washington, if it's fair to assume he can average 75 yards in a game. Like, I don't know that Nebraska has a receiver that can. So I'm not just trying to pick on Marcus Washington here, but my concern is that I think he's a good number 2 in this offense. I don't know that he can really be your number 1. I don't know that they have a number 1. So for me, that means you got to get production out of a lot of different people.
Could Thomas Fidone turn into your number 1?
Sure could. Yeah. I mean, I think he has, the pedigree to do that. And as he continues to show, the ability to stay healthy, some explosion. Obviously, I think that, some of it with him, you scheme up some things, you get a guy wide open in the middle of the field. That's not so much what he's done as it was a breakdown or setting that up. But he's there to make that play, and that's what you need. And so I think, one of the great things is it's still early in the season. Like, we don't have to know who their leading receiver is or who their most explosive wide receiver or tight end or whatever is right now. But what you want to see is people continuing to get better. Then it would be, a really tough argument from someone to say that Thomas Fidone isn't going to continue to get better because he's healthy. He's playing. His production has gone up every week from week 1 to week 2 to week 3. And I believe his snaps have gone up every week too. Those are the sort of things that you want to see. And so can he be reliable enough that you can make him the focal point of your passing game? We'll find out. But I don't know that there's any reason I can tell you it can't happen.
Schaefer, let me ask you something. If a couple of things can be true at once, do you separate Sims' development up to the point that he was playing versus Harburg's development up until when we saw him against Northern Illinois and not talk about Coach Satterfield in terms of development?
You're going to have to phrase that again. I heard the word.
So can Coach Satterfield be vilified for Sims at the same time as he gets credit for Harburg?
No, but I guess I don't really. In my mind, I'm not worrying about who's getting the credit or the blame, and I don't know that anyone should. I mean, what we're talking about here is small sample size of all of this. I mean, you have Jeff Sims in 2 games at Nebraska. Like, what he did at Georgia Tech is fine and nice, and it's data points, and we can't ignore it. But these are 2 games at Nebraska with different pieces in a different offense that he had a fall camp to work up to, and that's it. And so you have those 2 data points. And then you have Heinrich Harburg, who's never started a game, had never played in an FBS game until the second week of this season. And so their processes aren't the same. Where they're at aren't the same. I'm not worried about what the development track of either of them are yet, because I think a lot of it to me is I just want to see what it looks like if Nebraska can get on track. Now, obviously, Marcus Satterfield is the one tasked with getting these guys on track. But I don't know that I'm ready to make that comparison of his work with one versus his work with the other, because I think a lot of it is in the same point. I mean, I think you're trying to figure out what you are as an offense before you worry about every individual piece.
That's Mike J. Schaefer from Husker 24/7. Schaefer, we appreciate it as always. And, maybe we'll talk to you next week. I don't know how I feel after the after that interview.
He's still mad. It's happening to the best of us.
Hang in there. I'm sorry that Tua, has a touch on his passes and can throw all over the field, and Trevor Lawrence is fine. You're
right. Trevor Lawrence has none of those things. All right.
Not on Sunday, he didn't.
You can go now, Schaefer. I think Schaefer needs some mentoring.
Oh, he's great.
Maybe he can call our friends at Big Brothers Big Sisters, as you should. Go to mentoromaha.org to become a big. More of Benning and Lulla coming up next.
We'll be right back in 5 minutes. We'll be right back in 4 minutes.
Watson awaiting Kosic's direct snap. And here it is. He wants to throw it. He does, and he throws it up to the 3rd. And it's intercepted on a tip with that football. Alex Highsmith to the goal line. Touchdown, Pittsburgh on the first play. A 30-yard interception return.
We'll be right back in 3 minutes. We'll be right back in 2 minutes. We'll be right back. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Watson awaiting Posic's direct snap. And here it is. He wants to throw it. He does, and he throws it up to the third. And it's intercepted on a tip with that football. Alex Highsmith to the goal line. Touchdown, Pittsburgh on the first play. A 30-yard interception return by the young man out of Charlotte, Alex Highsmith.
Welcome back. We're halfway through hour number 3 on the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. I'm still fighting people about how I define generational talent, and Damon is still instigating.
I'm not.
No,
I'm an innocent bystander.
Yeah, you definitely did not instigate Schaefer there. That's not what happened.
No, I listen. The only thing I know for sure is I think Tua's leading the league in real offensive stats at quarterback.
Production and talent aren't the same thing.
No, I'm with you. No, I'm listen. I'm totally with you. There's a couple things here. I do do I think you were dead wrong? Yeah, but do I think I kind of know what you're?
If you're willing to operate from the premise I laid out, I think my conclusion is reasonable. You can say that my premise is.
Well, here I could just kill the whole thing.
Yeah.
There's nothing generational about Trevor Lawrence, regardless of the definition, period.
And that's where we just disagree.
Well, I mean, you're being denial, though.
I'm not in denial. I think he's a super talented guy.
Then just say that.
Yeah.
There's nothing generational about it.
I mean, now we're splitting hairs.
No, we're absolutely not. It's the fundamental premise of what we were talking about.
Super talented versus generational talent in the way I defined it is not a big difference.
Bro, you're killing me.
I mean,
how many generations does it have to roll over? 2, 3?
You already butchered that argument. Let's not revisit it. I didn't mean that out loud.
No, it's fine. Listen.
I feel like you feel some type of way.
What do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about that. I think you maybe have made a point with the turnovers and productivity at the quarterback spot in Nebraska, where you said you wanted to see something different. And is it really different than practice? Right? Because that you bristled up at that the other day when I said, and he's also seen him in practice too, right? And I think you felt some type of way.
Well, you explained later. I thought you meant it differently in the moment than you did, or than you said you did later.
Yeah, 100%.
Because when you said, well, he's seen him in practice, I thought you meant like, well, we don't need to see him on the field because they've seen him in practice.
Okay, so let's stay with that for a second.
And I don't think that's true.
Okay, so let's stay with that for a second. Why do you think they haven't really committed
to who this week?
Yeah.
Because they saw something on the field from Harburg that made them elevate what they thought he was capable of in games.
So you don't think it has to do with the fact that it has a lot to do with practice, good or bad?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's the hard part, is without seeing practice, without knowing what they're seeing, I have to go on the assumption that Jeff Sims has looked better in practice when both were healthy, right? Is that the fair assumption? Since he was named the starter?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm operating under the assumption that in practice, Jeff Sims, when healthy, has looked better than Heinrich Harburg. And so then we have to move to, okay, but in the games, Heinrich Harburg has looked better than Jeff Sims. But we have to put in the qualifier of location and opponent for those games also. Harburg was in a more advantageous situation than Sims was at any point this year. So I do think you need to see it sometimes. And listen, I coach, so I understand the hesitancy to not reward the better practice player or the guy that's performing better in practice, right? I don't want to call him a practice player because that has a negative connotation sometimes. I understand you want to reward the guy that's performing better in practice, but sometimes there is a gap, either for the positive or the negative, of what you see in practice versus what you see in a game. I genuinely believe Jeff Sims, that gap has been towards the negative. I bet he looks way better in practice because they said they hadn't seen some of these things, the ball handling mistakes and things like that. Maybe some of the interceptions, but not the snap stuff and that type of thing, right? So I think Jeff Sims so far this year, his gap has been to the negative. From what it sounded like with the way they're talking about Heinrich Harburg going into this week, I think the gap between what he was doing in practice and what he showed in the game was to the positive. Now, how big those gaps are on either side, I have no way of knowing because I don't know what the practice baseline is.
How much do you think what coaches do in terms of teaching and trying to put people in positions to win is dependent on best case scenario versus body of work, actual body of work?
Okay, say that for me one more time.
How much do you think what coaches do in terms of preparation trying to win games?
Yes.
Is based on
the best case scenario for that player versus their baseline kind of average.
Correct.
I think too often it's best case scenario. I think you have to play it toward the median. I think that's where.
But that takes some time, right?
And some discipline. As an offensive coordinator or a play caller, whoever you are, it takes a lot of discipline. Because this was the problem I had with the way Scott Frost called plays for Adrian Martinez.
But this is my problem with the sweeping judgment after week 2 or week 1.
Okay. And you're talking to people other than me at this point, right? With
Correct.
The sweeping judgment.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll always let you know when it's you.
Okay. Because I think that's fair, right? Did I want to see Heinrich Harburg against Colorado? Absolutely. I've been.
And I said I would have put him in for a series or two.
I think we're on the same page there. That's not an indictment of Jeff Sims. That was an indictment of where he was at in that moment. And I wanted to see something else at that moment, right?
Okay.
So,
I got the 98-mile-an-hour heater coming.
I'm waiting for it. Okay. So for me, I don't think the sweeping judgments on either Harburg or Jeff Sims are fair because, again, the situations they were put in are very different. And it's not like Harburg lit the world on fire. We just feel way better because he didn't have the unforced errors.
Okay. So, let's combine the fan, coach, whatever perspective here just for a second. Why are we so forgetful of how down we were and how upset we were with Anthony Grant at his fumble during Minnesota, but are all in on him versus La Tech and the talents that we saw versus Northern Illinois? But it can't be that way for a quarterback.
That's fair. But quarterbacks are always judged more harshly by fans.
Okay.
I think it's an emotional response. If we're being totally honest, it's an emotional response. It's much easier to see.
We act like week 1 didn't even happen for Anthony Grant, even though we were told all camp long, Ravi Lulla, that he had struggled taking care of the football. And guess what the narrative was? Well, he told us, oh, man, this is a lot of hypocrisy. Why would you put that guy in crunch time? And I said real time, hey, what if it's just the fact that he think they gave them the best chance to execute when they put him in the game, right? And you said, hey, that's fair. I get it. Whatever.
If that's the reason, I'm totally okay with that.
Okay, right? So we move on, and he doesn't play
against Colorado.
Colorado. And I said, hey, like, and I don't even know. I don't. And I would tell you if I did. Like, I said, we're kind of assuming when we do these linear comparisons that both guys have handled it the same. That
Sure.
It's just different.
That they reacted.
Yeah, it's different from quarterbacks and running backs. Then Northern Illinois happens, and it's like, man, Anthony Grant needs to play more.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense to you in the context of how I said you have to view practice in its totality when I say things like they've also seen practice? It could be to the good or to the bad, but those guys know what players are capable of.
I think for the most part, they know what they're capable of. Some guys turn into different people during games.
Yeah, and I felt like I didn't know if we had – you're right. You're consistent, too, because you asked me that after Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about it on the Dish and Ish podcast when we said, can a leopard change its spots?
Yeah.
But even you were kind of one of those guys that got me to kind of think differently real time when you said coaches are – go ahead.
They're supposed to put position or players in the best position to be successful.
Correct.
And I still think there's a version of that for both Jeff Sims and Heinrich Haarberg. Now, which version of that ends up being better for Nebraska? That's the $1 million question.
Okay, so what if Anthony Graham puts the ball on the carpet twice against La Tech?
How many yards did he get? How many touchdowns did he have? Is the juice versus squeeze argument, right? Like, that's the argument.
But I've been saying that.
I understand that. I don't disagree with you.
Like, that's how I feel about Sims. And people think, oh, you want Sims to play. Listen, I really, between me, you, and the fence post, I couldn't care less. But what I'm telling you is it's a juice worth the squeeze argument.
And in the first 2 games, the juice for Sims wasn't worth the squeeze. I think that's where people had a hard time. I think people maybe are starting to see with Anthony Grant that it probably is. And now you don't have a choice.
Oh, okay.
And now you don't have a choice, right?
Yeah.
Anthony Grant's the last guy in that room that you feel good about or that you know anything about, right?
I'm with you.
All right, coming up next, we've got – who's our guest next?
I don't know.
We've got Louisiana Tech. We're going to preview the Bulldogs here on Benning and Lulla.
Great Twitter account, though.
We will be back in 4 minutes. We will be back in 3 minutes. We will be back in 2 minutes. We will be back in 1 minute. We will be back in 30 seconds. Hurrdat Sports presents the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla.
Jack Turner wants the ball. Jack Turner slings it out to Harris again. Bursts on the speed, stays on his feet, makes a man miss. Inside the 10, inside the 5. Touchdown, Smoke Harris. Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Wrapping up the show here on a Tuesday, the Damon Benning Show with Ravi Lulla. Want to remind you about our friends over at Zipline. Make sure you give their dear old Nebraska brew a try. You know, go ahead, get the whole six-pack because we apparently skipped our six-pack this morning. I know Shane's a little cranky that he didn't get a crack a few cold ones open this morning. But make sure you go check out dear old Nebraska brew at your favorite Husker bar. We love our friends over at Zipline. Now, we are joined by Teddy Allen, who covers Louisiana Tech football. Teddy, how are you this morning?
I'm good, guys. Good to talk to you.
Hey, Teddy, you
got well in the heartland.
Yes, sir. You have to start with the Twitter handle.
Okay. Well,
does Mom really love Manning?
And which one? There's a bunch.
Well, it started with Archie, and then my mother loves ball. I mean, y'all probably do, and I do, but she's the varsity, and we're all just kind of. She started with Archie back in the day. Then Eli, who's the other guy? Peyton came along. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there was Eli, and he's the baby. So she would call during the game and say, hey, they're roughing up the baby when he was getting the, stuff and beat out of it all that. I'm worried about the baby. Is the baby going to be okay? So, anyway, she's a beautiful person. We got her a, life-size cutout of Peyton Manning, and she would, whenever they played, she would put it in the living room and get her Manning jersey. We got her, and she dug in. Growing up, it was Gunsmoke. If Gunsmoke came on Monday night, you couldn't talk during Gunsmoke. And it was the same way. Same way if the Colts were playing. You better be quiet.
Oh, those.
Anyway, that's the story behind that. Mama does love her Manning.
That's the sweet southern dulcet tones of Teddy Allen, waxing poetic. Teddy, help me here. What happens at the quarterback spot for the Bulldogs when they travel to Lincoln this Saturday?
Well, I think Bachmeyer will be able to play. Smiling Jack, Captain Jack Turner. He's just the human smile. He'll come in and relief if needed. But the transfer from Boise should be ready to go. And if those two go down, then you're talking true freshmen after that. And y'all know as much about them as I do. I mean, it's going to be dicey if that happens.
Teddy, regardless of who's tossing it out there, they'll hopefully be getting the ball to Smoke Harris. If you're a Louisiana Tech fan, kind of, I guess, just for people that haven't seen him, what does he do that's so special? Because he's pretty dynamic.
He is. He's number 6. So watch him. He'll return punt. And if the other team ever has to punt, he'll return them. After giving up 40 last week and 38 the week before, I don't know how good the defense is going to be. Anyway, Smoke Harris is a lot of fun. And again, he's the guy who stayed. He could have transferred or whatever. This is his 6th year, and he's stuck it out. He's from South Louisiana. He's only about 5'6". He's very well spoken and charismatic, a humble guy. He's just really elusive. He's 5'6" and really, really quick. So if you can get him to where he has to make one guy miss, Tech's looking pretty good in that regard.
It seems
fun. It's fun. We call him the Smoke Show.
Teddy, it seems interesting, right? For as much space and pace and getting it out on the perimeter, you guys, success running the football is a real thing. Like, how much does that ground game to the lay fan matter to this offense?
Yeah, well, a whole lot. But don't let they played at FTS school a couple weeks ago, Northwestern State. He's about 90 miles down the road in Natchitoches, Louisiana, and ran a lot against them, but against SMU the week before it was kind of tough. Had some success against North Texas, but again, they ran for about 400. So you got a veteran offensive line. Your number 1 back got hurt the week before the season started, but these 4 or 5 they've rotated in and out have done well. It's just so far nobody's been able to get a real rhythm going. It'll be key if they can run the ball up in Lincoln for sure. And again, a couple of other backs, one true freshman named Keith Willis Jr., he rushed for 188 2 weeks ago, which was the best anybody true freshman had done at Tech since 2012 with Kenneth Dixon, who was drafted by the Ravens, ran for that much. But then Keith got hurt the other night late in the game. It doesn't look like he's going to be able to play this week. So kind of like the Huskers, I know for sure who's going to run the ball. I know. That's what I say.
Oh.
Oh,
wow.
After 7 straight seasons of bowl games, 6 straight wins, the last 3 years have been a couple 3 and 9, and that's what I mostly say. That's most of my color commentary.
Hey, Teddy, I do color for our network with the legendary voice, Mr. Sharp. I'm really looking forward to meeting you on Saturday. Let me ask you. So I'm we're getting ready for this one, and I'm looking at some key stuff. Right, I looked at your your 4th quarter against North Texas, where you kind of mounted the comeback, and what led to that. And there's obviously the big play potential, but North Texas kept converting on 3rd down. They were 2 of 2 on 4th down. Had a big one. I felt like in the second half. When you look at, you kind of referenced the defense. You said, I don't know if we'll be able to get enough stops. How much of it is, can they just get off the field when they need to?
Well, they couldn't the other night. Again, the first game of the season against FIU, who now has won 2 in a row, the Bulldogs saw them. They didn't have the 4 yards passing in the second half. No, they had -2 yards passing. In fact, me and Malcolm Butler up in the booth, we said, wow, we've done as good as they have in the second half throwing the ball. So that was very encouraging, the 22-17 win. But against SMU, they got behind early. That's the other thing. In the first quarter, Tech's falling behind now 45-10.
Yeah.
Combined. So Coach talks about, we need to finish, but I think they need to start too.
Yeah, because that was 23-14 at the half or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. just couldn't get North Texas off the field. Got back into it with a late score and then recovered an onside kick. And Smoke Harris did what he does and got him another score to tie the game, 37-all. But then the other team just went straight down the field in about 8 plays within a minute, kicked field goal at the end to win it. So I feel bad for them. They haven't been able to figure out last year and this year, how to close out games. But again, has started poorly too. I think the defense has a lot of good players on it.
Mm-hmm.
Look for number 13, who's a true freshman, Michael Richard. He'll be a nickelback. He's a lot of fun to watch. He's like Amik Robertson, who's in the league now, as a little 5'9" corner. He's really good. They've got several good players over there. The linebackers are so much better than they have been, but for some reason they're giving the offense is making a lot of big plays. 60 and 50-yard plus. They're 1 or 2 in the nation, but they're giving up the same thing on the other side. So I'm rooting for them to get it figured out. We'll see Saturday.
We're talking with Teddy Allen. He does the radio analysis for Louisiana Tech football. Teddy, I wanted to ask you about Sonny Cumbie and just kind of the overall, I guess, feeling around him and the program. As you mentioned, this has been a pretty successful program in recent history, but struggling the last few years. Obviously 3-9 last year in Cumbie's first year, off to a 2-2 start now. What's the feeling about Sonny Cumbie in Ruston?
Well, everybody loves Sonny Cumbie. If you Husker fans aren't aware of him, he's 41 or 42. He married his middle school sweetheart. They got a couple little toe-headed boys who are awesome. So it's impossible not to love him. It's just impossible. And he walked on it. He's a West Texas guy who walked on to Texas Tech. Mike Leach was the coach. He never got to play till he was a senior, and then he led the country in passes. So he's going to stick to it, and not shy away. He's learning. And Skip Holtz's last year was the COVID year, the 5-5 year. And again, Skip had, won 6 bowl games in a row, lost that one that year, and then he was let go, which is probably the best thing to ever happen to him. He's been fine since then in the USFL, and so, but Sonny didn't, inherit a lot. He wasn't going to come in there and win a whole bunch of games that first year, so he's still getting it figured out. And I think if people are patient, the North Texas win Saturday would have really boosted things. Now it's kind of back to, you got behind 13-0 and gave up a lot of, didn't look real good. But I mean, nobody's given up on him yet. He's just 9-3. He's less than 15 games old as a head coach. So he's impossible not to root for, and you love him, and I hope they can just get this figured out. If they're not giving up a big play on defense, it's like a special team there against Southern Methodist, for instance.
Yeah.
First of all, you hate to lose to Methodist people down here in the Baptist Bible Belt. So that was the ultimate indignity. But it's 17-0, and it's fixing to be halftime, and they're punting out of their own end zone. So Smoke Harris is at the 50. So maybe you can score, and then you get the ball to start the second half, and all of a sudden you got something cooking. 12 men on the field. It's just stuff like that. That stuff can't happen. That's kind of been a microcosm of the first 4 games.
Teddy, we really appreciate
Get out of your own way.
we appreciate the time, and I'm sure Damon will have
I'm looking
good
forward
time
to
meeting
it.
you up here on Saturday. Safe travels and have a good time.
Thanks, Robbie.
Thank
you. Talk to y'all later.
Thanks, Teddy.
Make sure you go check out our friends.
That's a colloquialism. That's the South.
Make sure you go check out our friends at Rockbrook Camera, 168th and Center in Omaha, 70th and Pioneer, or rockbrookcamera.com. They want to make you the best photographer you can be, whatever that means for you. We want to be the best morning show we can be, whatever that means for us. I don't know if we hit it today, but we're going to try again tomorrow. It's Benning and Lulla.